The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and
He missed the complete that. He's crazy
As I
stuff.
said, Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
Though Montreal raised fears that attrition would gobble up many a driver, they turned out to be unfounded. That gives some encouragement to our competitors, with Road Atlanta being the next roundup today. A track whose short and simple layout hides a surprisingly tricky lap will mean everyone will need to be on their toes if they want to see the finish line. Who will get there first? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Ricmotech.com Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Pekin. With me in the booth covering the GTE class is Samuel Ryman. Next to him, covering the GT3 and GTC classes, is Bill Soup Zahn. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Bill, we've been to Road Atlanta a lot over the years, but never with 3 classes this closely matched on lap times. Tell our viewers a little bit about the makeup of this course.
I think we're going to be okay with class racing here because there's not a lot of left-right passing zones here. I think we're going to be all right. This place, if they build a roller coaster for road racing drivers, it might look a lot like Road Atlanta. Located on 750 acres north of Brazelton, Georgia, this place opened in 1970. And from opening day, drivers have been both hypnotized and horrified by the rhythm of the track that serpentines through 12 corners, rising and falling over 2.5 miles of carved out asphalt out of the Georgian clay. Now, perhaps the place is best known for the Petite Le Mans, the endurance race that was first held here in 1989. But to get a good look at what the track's really like, let's jump on board and take a lap around.
All right, we've got Kevin Brown behind the wheel of the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Road Atlanta. Turn 1 is going to be a fast right-hand sweeper, but despite the fact that it heads uphill, it's easy to understeer wide, and if that happens, expect to slither off into the concrete barrier. Then right away, you've got turns 2 and 3. It's completely blind at the apex and prone to lap 1 pileups. Passing here is ill-advised. As soon as you're done with that, though, you plunge back downhill through the S's. We need a very specific line through here to set up for turn 5. This is another uphill corner, but watch out for the curb on the inside because grabbing too much of it will unsettle the car, and there's very little room on either side to save it. Now we're heading towards turn 6. There's plenty of banking in this corner, so it's faster than you'd expect it to be for a 90-degree right-hander. But before you know it, you've hit turn 7. This is easily the most critical corner on the track. As you can see, it dumps you onto the backstretch, which means your corner exit will be of the utmost importance. Botch it, and you'll be a sitting duck to the draft the whole way down the straight. Not only that, but at the end of this is the heavy braking zone for the chicane of 10A and 10B. The rest of the course is very technical, so expect most of the pass attempts to take place here. The tricky part is, the switchback means it's possible to defend from either side, so guys will be fighting hard to retain position. It'll take respect from both drivers to make it work. After that, we head back over the crest, fly through the final corner, and finish a lap around Road Atlanta. Well, we are now watching qualifying here for the GTC class. Not a huge class out there today. Only 3 drivers have shown up in what has been deemed the amateur class in this series. You can see Paul Hamilton currently leading the way, and by a significant margin, Bill, with looks like 9/10 in hand currently.
Yeah, doing really well. Honeybake out there put in a 1:23.3 for his first attempt. My goodness, he's almost a whole second faster than Bart Workman.
Ralph Kemmerer is going to be the next one to cross the line here, as they're going to be finishing up the qualifying for this class relatively quickly. Comes down to the chicane. He's got about 4/10 to make up to try and overtake Bart Workman. It's going to be a lot more work to try and get the pole away from Hamilton. Let's see what Kemmerer can do.
You see on our current lap time graphic there, Joe, looks like he might actually be on an outlap as he comes across the line, and sure enough, we're not going to see any kind of jump in his times. As for the clock in the top left corner of your screen, viewers, this is a 30-minute qualifying session. The GTC is currently having the track for the first 10 minutes. There's 3 classes, so they each have the track to themselves for 10 minutes. So closing in on the final 2 minutes of qualifying for this class.
Well, we may have need a correction on that. It might be 7 minutes left. I think we just got through the track introduction a little bit quicker than we expected here. We'll find out in a bit, but we will keep you up to date on what is happening out on track and when they give out the checkered flag and end this session as Kemmerer loses it out of turn 7.
There was a lot of talk. First of all, I'm glad to be back to this series. I covered the whole thing last season. It's good to be back here filling in. There was a lot of talk preseason about how they're going to break up the classes. I like the way they've done it. They put Hamilton, Workman, and Kemmerer down there in the GTCs. That's fun, and the scoring is fun also.
Workman crosses the line, but that wasn't outlap, so that is not a scored lap for him. Hamilton, we're hearing, is also on an outlap. Kemmerer is in the pits. We watch Workman work his way through the S's. One thing that's interesting about these cars, Bill, that is almost counterintuitive, I feel like, but does make it exciting to watch, is they have a lot less aids in these Porsches than they do in some of the faster classes, such as the GT3s and GTEs. And that makes these laps quite exciting, I have to imagine, from the cockpit.
Which is an interesting kind of dichotomy there, where they put the, how can I put this politically correct, the talent challenge drivers down there in the cars that have the least driving aids. Kind of the guys that have the talent get all the bells and whistles to play with.
Certainly seems that way, but it keeps lap times lower here in this slower class.
I'm just actually happy to be able to call the car a Porsche finally.
Absolutely. All right, Workman is going to cross the line. I believe this is a scored lap from a 124.2. Does he improve? Yes, he does. A 123.9 chops it down by a significant margin, but that's going to keep him in second. Oh, and Hamilton looks like he is going to be giving up the ghost, and I believe this is the end of this session for the Porsches, as we have GT3s now lining up at the end of the pit lane, with everybody having completed the lap in that GTC field. Let's go to the GTC points, actually, and see where that championship stands.
Yeah, you know, the best in class has kind of been split amongst 4 drivers. Bart Workman and Scott Johnson that you see at the top of your chart there. They have 2 wins each. Now, Jay DeGuerre, he picked up a win at Sonoma, and then Paul Honeybaked Hamilton earned a top score last time out at Montreal. So that's what has him sitting in 4th position. Then there's privateer Ralph Kemmerer, who is here today. He sits in 5th.
All right, Joe, so this GT3 field has taken to the track, but I bet a lot of our new viewers are saying, what's going on here, Joe? Look at Trampus Koltov and a couple other drivers. They're in Ferraris. What are they doing mixing it up with this GT3 field?
Absolutely. Last round was the first time they introduced the Ferrari GT3 to this series, the day that it came out. So that was a little nerve-wracking, but it paid off for Koltov as he took the win at Montreal in the Ferrari. There is some controversy there. There's some claims that the Ferrari is a little bit faster, and I'd say that was a little bit borne out by the qualifying and the performance that we saw from Koltov, but could be different today. It's a different track, very different nature from Montreal.
Well, this series doesn't do any added weights or balance of performance adjustments. The way iRacing sets up the car is basically the way you take it out there. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it's a fixed setup. You got to play with the stuff under the hood. Right now, we saw pretty much a race to be the first to get out onto the racetrack with all these cars gridded up at the end of pit road. As soon as the green flag dropped on our session, Dexter Castro won that. He'll be the first GT3 driver to turn a lap.
The lone BMW as well. Oh, excuse me. I understand that, well, I was told that Jordan Weeks is in one, but I believe he's in a Mercedes, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like Castro's the only BMW that's actually out on the track. Yeah, and it looks like he is the, after the lace chains, it looks like Castro is our only BMW driver, which is much to the angst of our director.
And Castro comes around now through the chicane. One of those areas where this car might have a little bit nicer time than the Ferrari does. Over the hill and across the line. Let's see what his first lap is going to look like. 1:19.7, only a tenth off of his fastest time in practice, and Trampus Kolthoff is nowhere near him. 5 tenths off.
Yeah, right now Castro the only won the break underneath 1:20, but then again each of these drivers have only had one lap, perhaps some of them waiting for their tyres to warm up. Jordan Weeks though, he was the fastest in practice, he crosses the line, no time his first lap around, he may have had an off course.
You can see the UK&I driver, boy that must be pretty late over where he is actually for Weeks.
3 a.m. Perfect time to eat a Krabby Patty.
Alright, so now the onus is on Drew Lidke, Trampus Kolthoff, and Peter Hebron. They're the three trailing Castro right now, all of them under the 121 mark. Lidke is the closest with a 120.2. He's got about 5 tenths to make up. Looks like he's got his teammate Liam Park behind him, and he's actually going to let him through. A little bit of team tactics here, but looks like Park went a little bit too hot into the corner with that extra speed from the draft, so it was all for naught. Neither driver is going to get a good lap time this time around. Kolthoff went to P2, but you just saw on screen had a bit of a moment there into turn 1.
Yeah, he improved his time. Let's see what Jordan Weeks can do. If he's had a clean lap this time around. Once again, he was the fastest in practice. Yet to set a time in qualifying, though. That changes now. And he goes to the top.
A Mercedes up at the top this time. That could be an interesting development. The Ferraris certainly don't look to be very hot this week, at least compared to how they were at Montreal. Kolthoff has come out for his warm-up lap. He's got to get it wound up once more. He's got 5 minutes to try to topple the cars of Dexter Castro and Jordan Weeks now.
This is only Weeks' second race this season.
Clearly a fast driver, though.
Yep. Missed the first 5 races, made his debut last time out at Montreal. Certainly somebody to keep an eye on.
Interesting development we've had in the GTC class. Scott Johnson has showed up. However, I don't believe he will be able to qualify, so we should start from the back of the field.
Well, with only 3 cars in that class, it won't be that far back.
That's true. Lidke moves himself back up into third this time around. Gets a successful lap of 120.1, so an improvement of about 7 tenths.
Got some news from Dexter Castro. We're racing for 100 minutes tonight. Or actually today, if you're looking on screen. It's daytime here in Atlanta. He says he might go for tires. That's unusual. That BMW must be using them up. Usually, he likes to run them to the rims.
100?
Oh, that's a good time.
Wow. Castro laying the marker down with a 1:19.4 now.
Well, if that's what he can do on new tyres, I don't blame him for wanting to change them.
Jordan Weeks is going to be following right behind him if he can get close enough.
Well, Weeks just made a pit stop. I think he wants to make sure he has fresh tyres when he sets on his best qualifying lap. It's a kind of breaking this into 2 stints, this 10-minute qualifying session.
These GT3 cars do have tire warmers, so they don't have to worry about getting them up to temperature. As soon as you get out of the pits, you should be able to push. Now, I'm curious to see if Kolthoff can do anything. He was so dominant last race. A 120.2 is on the board for him. He's sitting in 4th. He comes around the final corner. Let's see if he ups his game. Looks like it is not to be.
He put a couple of wheels off really at the worst point you can do it there, coming out of a final turn, because I wonder if that counts as a 1x for the lap that you end and the lap that you start.
Indeed, it looks like that last lap did not count. It might be the case. So he could be running out of time to get a good lap in here.
Well, he's definitely out of time now.
Yes, indeed. If he toes back and gets out of the pits right now, I think he could get back to the line in time.
He's doing it.
It's going to be a one and done, though, for Trampus Kolthoff if he wants to get any higher than 4th place.
Cue the Eminem music.
Jordan Weeks, the number 88, comes around turn 7, one of the most important corners of the track, trying to get himself the launch. He has 2/10 to make up on Castro. So far, Weeks has only had 1 scored time this qualifying session.
I tell you what, even for a qualifying session at Road Atlanta, seeing a lot of mistakes out here right now. I tell you, Drew Lidke has actually just gone and made one too. I wonder if the track temperature has a lot to do with that. 100 degrees Fahrenheit, certainly not cool.
Taking away a bit of the grip that these drivers would like to have. As Weeks crosses the line, he does not improve. That one was a 10th off of his best time so far. Kolthoff is coming around once more.
This is his out lap, remember? He just rolled out of the pits to try and get one more lap in.
This time kept it on the track or out of the final corner.
Should note, Kolthoff isn't the only Ferrari in this class today. Peter Hebron, who's currently qualified 6th in class, is out there too.
Hebron currently sitting in 6th. Driver we haven't talked about a lot either is Tim Collier, who's rounds out the top 5 at a 120.7.
Got the news that this is his flying lap. This one is going to count, so if he can keep it clean, bring it in. Kolthoff sitting in 4th right now.
In the queue for the GT E-Class already starting to form at the end of pit road. They're actually rolling out as these guys come around to complete their final time laps.
All right, Lidke is coming across. Can he go up from 3rd? A 120.1 is the marker. He does not. Behind him, Jordan Weeks. Can he get that pole? This is it. And he also does not improve.
And Kolthoff just had an off coming out of the final corner. He's not going to get a clean lap in. He's going to sit in 4th.
The only one I think who might still have a shot at improving is David Slee, who's currently 7th in class. He's working his way through the final couple of turns. Maybe he'll try and break his way into the top 3 rows of the GT3 grid. Keeps it on the track. A 120.5 is an improvement. Moves him up to 5th.
Wow, nice final last gasp for David Slee to improve himself. With that, we have to wait for these outlaps to go through for our GTEs, so let's go to Sam for the GT3 standings.
Yeah, this is the championship standings in GT3 after 6 of 10 rounds of a championship. There you see Dexter Castro has a nice healthy lead, 141 points, the only one to have more than 100 points in a championship right now. But then you see it is awfully close from 2nd on back with Drew Lidke, Trampus Kolthoff, Rocky Garcia and Tim Collier separated from 2nd to 5th by a mere 22 points.
Garcia's been hot this season. He's got 3 wins out of 6 races so far.
And as we wait for these lap times to come on, there's also the GTE standings. I believe we'll be going through those now, just double checking with our director. So as those come up, Jeffrey Ooms leads the way off of a win last round in this class. Humberto Roca is going to have some work to do at 33 back. Much like the GT3s, it's very close for that 2nd place. Paul Darling keeping him honest, only 5 markers behind. And then you have a bit of a jump back to Jimmy Hume for Puffin Racing into 4th. Same thing with Horsley rounding out our top 5. not looking likely that they're going to challenge toward the end of the season unless some drastic things happen.
Man, Ferrari versus Ford recently on iRacing, it's been power of numbers in Ferrari's favour. Well, once again, we have more Ferraris here, but Umberto Roca in the only Ford was the fastest one in practice. He runs a solid 1:16.6 to start this qualifying session. Let's see if anyone can beat his Ford.
Darling gets one in at a 1:16.9. He's got 3/10 to try and catch up to Roca. Hume takes third, Horsley fourth.
Jeffrey Humes must have had an off course on his first qualifying lap. He was second fastest and the fastest Ferrari during practice, but no time on the board as of just yet. This is the Ford GTs and the Ferrari GTE car making up this GTE class.
Sam, you mentioned a lot of the mistakes that we're seeing here in the qualifying. Do you think that says something about what we should expect during the race? Or do you think it should be pretty clean?
Well, I'd like to think it would be pretty clean. I mean, everyone's gonna be pushing it in qualifying, of course, and also the fact that we have a smaller field racing for 100 minutes. I think that means you can make it a bit easier. It take it a bit easier. It doesn't mean you have a lot of ground to make up. That being said, if you can get a good qualifying time in, like Jeffrey Humes just went to second on the board, and Darling just knocked him back down, so Darling goes to second, Humes goes to third. Because there aren't a lot of overtaking opportunities around here, the better you can qualify, the easier your day's going to be.
But you got that fast repair whispering in your ear and holding your hand, telling you, go ahead, be brave, there's less on the line.
The pictures that Bill's on paints, Robert Tarbox finally gets a time on the screen at a 1:19.2. He is the last of the drivers in the GTE class that have put in a time. We're still waiting for Samuel Scott and Freddie De La Rosa to get a time. And in fact, I don't see Freddie session.
He just came back in, Joe. He did disconnect, but the thing about Freddie De La Rosa here is he didn't actually turn a lap during practice, so we don't know what he's going to have in qualifying here, and he's got the same name as a former Formula 1 driver, so maybe he's got that to his advantage, although Samuel Scott has a very fast name too.
Very much so. I was just going to ask if Freddie was any relation to Pedro.
Well, De La Rosa means pick roses, correct?
I'm afraid I don't know. My Spanish is not terribly good. We were riding on board with Ooms. He's sitting in third at a 16.8. He's going to follow Darling across the line as Darling comes over. Is he going to improve from second? No, he is not. Ooms as well stays in his position. Both drivers, at least Ooms had an off, and it looks like Darling had an off as well. Both drivers making mistakes that time.
And you can see on our timing and scoring, as speaking of mistakes right there, Paul Darling having a big fishtail going down the S's. Look at the times on the left-hand side of your screen, just how close Paul Darling and Jeffrey Ooms are to each other. 0.15 hundredths of a second there, 0.015 seconds essentially is separating those two from front row, being on the front row to being on the second row.
Bit of a tight fight there for best of the rest. Roca being in the only Ford makes you wonder if this is a Ford track and there's a bit of a mistake from all the other drivers to not potentially take up that car in the popular Ferrari GTE this season. Jimmy Hume is going to cross the line. And he improves, but does not improve his position. He's got a 1:17.4 now.
I've been away for a while. Good to come back, see a couple things. Looks like there's a new sheriff in town with Jeffrey Ooms. Man, he is making his presence known not only here in Champion Motorsports, but also over there in Audubon, as he's going to make another appearance for that season coming up. Umberto Roca, I'm always expecting him on top, but that's not the case anymore. And it's good to see Jimmy Hume promoted up into the top class. He was, when I was covering him last season, he was dominating down there in the like the slowest of the classes. Good to see him up there.
Roker just improved his time, Joe, and you know, a lot of tracks on iRacing, especially road courses, you go to them the first time, and the great thing about iRacing is you can learn these tracks, learn what they're like in real life, because that's really iRacing's specialty, as they go around and laser scan these tracks. And after you do a race or two, you learn, hey, a high downforce setup is good here, or a low downforce setup is good here. And you talk about the difference between the Ford and the Ferrari. I've been racing this track for years. I've still never worked out which of the better setups is here, so I can only imagine how difficult it is to pick a good car for this twisty roller coaster of a course.
Absolutely, with a lot of fast turns as well as high-speed corners, it can be hard to tell which way you should lean it. Watching Samuel Scott as he comes over the hill to try and complete one more lap. He's currently sitting in 5th in this GTE class at a 1:18.2. Looks like that one is not going to count.
He was doing 140 miles an hour through that final turn. As sharp as it is, that's just how quick these cars are going around here. You talk about those high-speed corners. That's also probably why Dexter is considering changing tyres during the race, and I can't blame him.
Paul Darling did get a timed lap in that time, but unfortunately was not able to improve. And yeah, you talk about the high speeds through that final corner. One thing that always amazes me, that if they still race here in real life with cars of this power, is there is just no runoff to that outside. There is a wall right there. And I have to imagine that that is a bit hair-raising in the real world.
Meanwhile, we are running out of time in this session, Joe.
And Roca feels confident enough that he has called it a day for qualifying.
Oh, he binned it. He binned it coming out of turn 5. Probably the only time we'll see him make a mistake today, to be honest.
Certainly has been doing pretty well, although he's not been mistake-free this season, hence why he is not leading the points. Has had a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of bad decisions. So we watch Darling come across for another one, and once again is not able to get under that 16.8 mark. I believe he should be able to finish his lap, so he is going to get one more flyer.
Oh, Paul Darling, yeah, he just had a hard crash. That's a
Yep.
good thing it's iRacing.
He did get a flyer. He flew right into the tires.
This is what you don't want to have happen in real life.
Exactly. We're going to watch this replay. Looks like just a little loose out of that turn 3. I would not be surprised if that is one of the danger zones that we see a lot of drivers have problems with.
That was a man sitting in second trying to make up 0.3 of a second to get the pole. That's what you get.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make here with saying Humberto Roca binning it in qualifying. I think that's the only time we'll see that. It's not because I have that much confidence in Roca to not make a mistake during the race. It's that he really has no reason he should make a mistake during the race. He's got 0.3 over the rest of the field in qualifying. Perhaps that is a bit of a sign that he might be able to try and take it easy if he can get a jump on the Ferraris early on. Meanwhile, Freddie De La Rosa, we're watching on course here. Curious to see what kind of pace he has, because he hasn't actually turned a qualifying time yet. Where's he going to go?
And it looks like that lap is actually not going to count. That was an out lap. So, Freddie De La Rosa is done for the day and is going to start at the back of the GTE field. With that, our grid is now set, so let's go through our order. Humberto Roca stuck it on pole at the start of his class's qualifying and never looked back. That's a good sign for him. Paul Darling is going to start in second, and then row 2 will begin with Jeffrey Ooms. Jimmy Hume starts in fourth with Samuel Scott rounding out the top 5, and then Andrew Horsley will start 6 with Robert Tarbox Jr. rounding out the cars in the GTE field that put in a lap time starting in 7th. Sam?
Alright, we got Dexter Castro in the lone BMW will lead the GT3 field to green. Behind him, we have two Mercedes of Jordan Weeks and Drew Lidke, followed by a Ferrari of Trampers Kolthoff. Fifth in class is David Slee. He's in the Mercedes alongside a Ferrari. Mercedes, Ferrari. Sounds like a Formula One start here with Peter Hebron back there in the number 346 Ferrari. Three Mercedes round out the class of Tim Collier, Kenneth Rodriguez, and Liam Park. Bill.
Then we get back to the pole sitter in the slower class in the Porsches. It's Paul Honeybaked Hamilton. Bart Workman is going to be behind him with Rouse Kemmerer in third position. Then we have the one lone driver back there, Freddie De La Rosa. He's going to be I don't see that the start back there. I think he probably gets a start up in his class. If I am correct on that, Joe, what do you think? Does he have to start at the back of the field, or does he get to start behind his class?
I do not see him having gridded yet, and it looks like, according to the grid, I think he will start at the back of the field.
That is a tough one. And then the last car on the grid, Scott Johnson.
Well, I know that you said that you have strong feelings about how well Roca will be doing today, Sam. Is he your pick?
Yeah, why not?
Simple and to the point. Let's go to Bill for his two classes. Who's got your eye today?
Okay, well, I hate to go with the pole sitter, but I think Castro has a lock on this one. I think the BMW is going to do really well here at Road Atlanta, so I like him from the pole. I don't like Honeybake, though, in the back there in the number 77 machine. I think Bart Workman is going to actually work his way up for the win, so look for him to get that one.
If Hamilton does take the win, it'll be 2 in a row for him, as he won it at Montreal. Now,
Couple more pre-race notes here, Joe. For me, picking Humberto Roca. Paul Darlin, the driver who's going to start alongside him, has actually spun on the opening lap of the last couple of races, so that doesn't bode well for the start of his race here, considering what we saw in qualifying. Also, a bit of an update with Freddie De La Rosa. He's saying he actually wanted to enter this race in the Ford GT, but ended up being in the Ferrari instead. Also, it looks like we have one car who will start from the pits. Actually, won't start at all. He's not in the session, and that is Ralph Camara. So only a 3-car GTEC field.
as they come up the S's, they're hitting now turn 5. Now, Bill, this is the spot that I feel like most of our fans need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would say my times through that corner for crashing, that's probably the highest one for me. And not only that, you can crash in on the right side, you can crash on the left side. Turn 5 is a bear.
You can get creative with it. You can crash whichever way you want.
And it's so important, too, yeah, because it sets up that long straight down into 6 where if you don't get it right, you're a sitting duck.
Certainly is possible to try and sneak a pass in. You can see they're working around 7, one of the other very important corners on this track, as it leads onto the backstretch. Requires a good head of steam, being able to get to the power early, because once they hit that chicane, that is the other most popular place to execute an overtake, as the roof pace car leads them to that 10 and 10A corners.
And I love this chicane because if you defend on the left-hand side, you can lose it from the top side. If you defend on the right-hand side, they can get underneath you. It's perfectly placed.
Always throws up some interesting moments. Now, as they hit that point, going to be a lot of drivers trying to spot their brake marker into there, coming in at a high rate of knots. Be a real test, but right now the test is who can get off the line the best. As the pace car peels in, Humberto Roca takes control and the green flag waves. They accelerate around that final corner. GTE class still very much side by side with a number of the cars as they come into turn 1 very fast through here. They cannot stay this way for long, as it looks like Darling is going to fall back and Ooms is going to be able to take second. Let's go back to the GT3s.
Dexter Castro has got the jump of a field. This is more like what you want to start here at Road Atlanta, spread out single file, but that's not what's going on for second. 2 Mercedes getting very close there with Weeks and Lidke. Looks like Weeks will come out on top and take second, Bill.
Unlike Castro, who got a great jump, Paul Hamilton did not, and Scott Johnson is right behind him. Now, the car that's in the mix there is De La Rosa. He's another class, a faster class, trying to make it up. Last car in line, Bart Workman.
All three classes with a very clean start.
David Slee makes a mistake in turn 5. First drive on the first lap we see do that. However, keeps it pointing in the right direction.
Now, if you're wondering why we aren't seeing a whole lot of aggressive moves here, it's because right now, what you're seeing, the orange zone is out of turn 7. The drivers are instructed to take it easy until the exit of turn 7, or else penalties will be harsher if the stewards take a look at any car-to-car contact.
I think they all paid attention to the orange zone. I think everyone got around.
Not very close between most of the cars in the GTEs, but our leaders, Roca and Ooms, are barely half a second away from one another as they come through turn 4.
David Slee, who put in that great qualifying run, had a horrible corner 5 exit. We talked about it. He dropped about 3 or 4 positions on lap number 1.
That moves him back to 7th. Doesn't have to worry too much because behind him, Rodriguez is more worried about Liam Park behind him, putting the pressure on to try to take away that 8th spot.
You're looking at Slee, so we'll keep an eye on him. We'll see him work his way back up. He's got Collier in front of him and Hebron running in 12th and 13th overall.
Of course. The problem is, when you make a mistake as big as he did exiting turn 5 last lap around, you might take it a bit more conservatively the next lap, and I'm worried he did that a little bit this lap, because now we see Rodriguez getting right on the back of him as they come out to the back straight.
Both Rodriguez and Slee were pushing hard out of turn 7. Rodriguez making a liar out of me, getting all over the top of David Slee, using the draft to close in down the back stretch. Is he going to peek to the inside? He takes a look, but a defensive move, a late defensive move from Slee. And breaking into the corner, they're going to stay in order. Slee 7th, Rodriguez 8th, and Park 9th.
Yeah, Slee is in no state of mind to be giving up positions right now after what happened to him. He's not going to be that courteous. He's going to defend.
He's dropping way off of his teammate Tim Collier, though. Kolthoff gets himself up into the podium. Let's take a look at the replay. This was into turn 1. Drew Littke turned the car in, and it didn't go exactly the way he hoped.
Yeah, Litke's having more problems.
Yeah.
Let's keep with this replay. Go with Litke. I don't know if he got slowed down or if his car's not handling after some kind of contact there, but he just takes to the grass going down through the S's and drops to the back of the field.
Yeah, Kolthoff went around it. From my view, I don't think he got touched. It's almost like hardware issue or something.
I think Sam might be right. I think there could be a cut course penalty that we missed. And Littke is obviously suffering for it.
Man, you mentioned it earlier, Joe. Ooms has not letting Roca get away. After what were the times we saw Roca put up in practice and qualifying, I had a feeling that's what was going to happen. I mean, the only excuse I think Roca could tell his team right now is he's saving his stuff. But if that's not the case, Ooms is certainly there within striking range.
Right on board with Jeffrey, trying to chase down the lone Ford of Roca. Another fight for the lead that's closest in the GT3s.
And
Mr.
another
Night Owl himself, yeah.
Yeah, another lone car out there is Dexter Castro. So you have a lone Ford leading in the fastest class, and you have Castro down here leading in his BMW. But look at this, as Weeks is really beginning to run him down. Castro got a great jump, opened up a big lead, but Weeks is coming.
Right on board with Castro, looking back under his rear spoiler. Weeks used to be a little bit closer. He was within half a second, but he lost a little time here in the first half of the lap. Still an hour and 34 minutes left to go, so a lot of racing. Drivers can be patient as they have plenty of time.
But I do think it will be only seconds or minutes before Weeks catches him. I don't think it will be weeks.
Hey.
Now, we haven't covered the GTC a whole lot, but not a lot of action. There is a little bit of a fight for the lead. Johnson is keeping Hamilton honest.
These guys are just putting in the laps right now. Hamilton's got just over a second lead on Johnson. They've been running in this order once they got De La Rosa out of the mix because he had to start back there. Let's go up to Litke in 7th position. I believe he's real close to the last car in that class as he's trying to make up the time. He's working right now on Liam Parks. Litke's fast. He shouldn't be back there.
Quite a battle between a number of cars.
Yeah.
3 of them being teammates, Slee, Park, and Lidke.
Slee is another one that had that early incident that's probably farther back than he really should be. So you have Slee, Slee and Lidke. Oh my, that's Lidke going wide.
Lidke is struggling in that Mercedes here at the start of this race at Road Atlanta. Does not hit the wall and manages to keep going, but something seems to be wrong inside that car.
Yeah, unless he gets that sorted out, it's going to be a really long hour and 33 minutes left.
The 3 ahead of him seem to be the closest fight, but we've also got a battle for 5th. This is Horsley and Scott. Horsley, the green and black Ferrari leading, the yellow and black Ferrari of Samuel Scott trailing behind.
Yeah, I think Scott was one of the drivers who had a bit of an off at turn 5 early on, so maybe struggling for some early grip here, and I'm not sure if that's what cost him this position, but Scott started in 5th and Horsley started in 6th. At some point they switched around. Meanwhile, when it comes to the GTE class, the other thing I've been trying to keep an eye on is how fast is Freddy De La Rosa? That's one question we didn't know the answer to because we never saw him turn a lap in practice and qualifying. His fastest lap of the race so far in the early stages when he didn't have any traffic was a 1:17.5. That is about good enough for 3rd or 4th in class, so it will be interesting to see what this 22 car can do.
And he's just about taking care of all the slower cars in front of him. He's just got Coltop to get through, Weeks and Castro. Then at least he'll be back with his friends.
From there, it'll be mostly about pace before he can get to the back of Robert Tarbox. Got quite a ways to try and run down the first of that GTE class. Oh, we had a change for position. Liam Park was passed by Drew Lidke, but he's going to give it right back as I think he got another cut course through the second half of the chicane. Just came in a little bit too hot, had a good run. Unfortunately, outbraked himself. Suspect this is going to be a race to forget for the Canadian driver.
Oh, the first 10 minutes will be. Still a long way to go. Not missing anything up front, by the way. Roka's actually pulled away from Ooms.
Here we see our leader.
Hey, and there we see lap traffic in front of him. As twisty as Road Atlanta is, and as much as it... Oh! Roka able to find a way by. And as much as it seems like it goes on for a while because you're doing so much work each lap, it's actually a very short track around here, 1 minute 20 seconds.
Ooms making a critical move, sneaking past Bart Workman before they get to the S's. That is going to keep him within sight of Roka, who's now going to deal with Scott Johnson up ahead of him. Ooh, closes in turn 6, and he's got to get by here in 7 so that he's not compromised on exit. Still going to be a little bit offline on entry, so didn't hurt him too much. Jeffrey Ooms keeps it about 1.4 behind.
The good news is for Roka, it's a really small field in the GTC class. There's only 3 drivers out there, so it just has the leader to negotiate. Then he'll have clear track again.
Oh, and Liam Park is off. In turn 1.
Cost him a lot of time. He was having that battle with Drew Lidke. The gap between them right now showing that a couple seconds.
Lidke had already finally made the pass, so I think Park was trying to staying with him. You can see Litke at the very front of the camera shot there.
And I was looking at the wrong number. It's actually grown to 6 seconds. It was about 1 second between them. Now it's 6.
Park did a good job keeping the car off the wall. Usually you come in there at such high speeds. That grass is very slippery and it's incredibly easy to find the barriers. But Park now down in 9th and the last of the GT3 cars out on track.
Let's go to 10th overall. This is Freddie De La Rosa. It's not a battle for position, but look at how close Castro and Weeks are here. This is going to be interesting. Remember, De La Rosa tried to make up ground after he wasn't able to put in a qualifying time. Had to start at the very back of the field.
And we should note that these GT3 cars are not going to get a blue flag since he is not a car a lap ahead. So they need to be paying attention.
It's not real easy to make a pass going down the S's. I almost wonder if he'll wait for it to straighten up here. Will he get him in the run down to turn 6? No, he's going to wait for the long back straight.
Through turn 6, and then into turn 7, setting himself up to get the launch out of there. Unfortunately for him, I'm not sure that this is the best move, Sam, because the GT3 cars have quite a bit of top end.
Well, he's going to do it anyway.
He's trying. He's going to have to outbrake him, which the GTE car can do very well. Into the corners as he closes up on our GT3 leader of Castro. Thankfully, is able to slip between them successfully. Has to wait patiently out of this final corner.
This could actually be advantage to Weeks. The fact that Rosa got him by on the part which didn't really slow Weeks down. Castro's going to have to lift here because Rosa's on the inside.
Uh-oh.
That's going to allow Weeks to close in.
Yeah, Dexter got a little bit squirrely there. He gathered it up. I thought he was in trouble. But now the battle is on for the lead.
It is now only 3/10 between that Mercedes and the BMW. The game is afoot for Jordan Weeks as he holds onto that rear spoiler up through turn 5. Has to be careful, losing a little bit visibility, being so close behind another car now. Does he get the launch? This is the critical corner out of turn 7. Just looks like he was not on the power soon enough as Dexter Castro really carried the speed and keeps Weeks at arm's length.
Yeah,
Closes into the draft anyways, though.
There
Oh,
it
is he going to
goes.
have a go? Looks to the inside. Just not quite brave enough on the brakes. He's given a little bit of room at the apex. Dexter Castro using those survival instincts and almost cuts him off coming up and over the hill.
Meanwhile, at the other end of the GT3 field, things are getting exciting between Slee, Litke down the inside. Oh, and almost contact, maybe contact Rodriguez, and there is contact between Rodriguez and Slee. They'll argue about that one, but Litke was able to get by them both. He's pulling away into the sunset.
Slee got on the radio with a bit of an apology. Rodriguez was trying to come back and get 2 spots in 1.
And Slee has actually pulled off to the side. I wonder how badly damaged his car is from that.
It was side-by-side contact, and that can easily get you some suspension damage if you're not careful.
Yeah, Slee has retired from the race, not even going to attempt to take the free repair.
that has been where the excitement has been between Slee, Park, Rodriguez, and Litke. All those guys at the back of that class.
But look at the excitement for the lead in the class. Castro is going to lose it. Oh, how hard will he fight to retain this lead? Weeks goes by, and Castro's got nothing to respond with.
Oh, and we understand that... Oh, going to Darling, did he... Oh, no, he hasn't been passed yet, but Hume, after a mistake from Paul, has caught him. We'll get back to that in a second. Let's hold on this battle to see if he's able to make the pass, but I can tell you that that was in the treacherous turn 5. The slipstream reels in Jimmy Hume.
Darling's got horrible front-end damage. He nosed it in. I think this is a done deal.
Oh, but
Yeah,
he's later
say
on
that
the brakes.
He's missing his hood. I didn't even realise that because his car's black and yellow. I'm just like, oh, that's a very black hood.
I made the same mistake. Hume not able to get done. Maybe he's aware that he's damaged. Aware that the car ahead is limping, is not going to have the straight line speed as they come back into turn one.
I think Hume's going to do just what Weeks just did to Castro. Just wait till they get out of 7 and get him there.
Oh, and battle for the lead. Roker's being held up by GT3 traffic, and Ooms is going to try and capitalise on that.
Oh, I thought about it. That was Liam Park in that Mercedes that he tried to squeeze through 3 wide, but I think Ooms realized that an hour and 23 is left. He does not need to make those marginal moves.
Well, these two can afford to battle cleanly, though. They've got 10 seconds ahead of that battle for third between Paul Darling and Jimmy Hume. It's not like I have anyone on the tail right now, and Ooms, whether it be a higher top-end speed in his car or just a bit better aerodynamics through the setup, or just the fact he had the draft and Roker there, he definitely seemed to be catching down that back straight.
Speaking of top-end speed, I don't know if maybe Darling's hit made the car better.
It's really fast, isn't it, Joe? Hume is not able to do anything with it. Darling able to fend off Hume. The car's running fine.
I am agog as we
You're going to see it right now.
You're going to see just how hard this hit was. This is down to the S's here. And then just loses it coming up and overcorrects and boom, into the wall.
Yeah, now of course the problem is there, even if a car is handling okay, he's going to have to keep an eye on these gauges, because there's always a problem that could have damaged something in the engine that could result in it popping later on.
Just one less thing that Darling wished he didn't have to worry about. He did get past the first lap this time at least.
Oh, Robert Tarbox Jr. spinning. He's able to keep it off of a wall section in turn 5, but now he's got the problem of he's trying to get the car pointing back the right direction out of turn 5. Now, Tarbox Jr. is able to do that, okay? He made the spin in 7th, he rejoined in 7th because no one was coming behind him. But a move like this could be very dangerous late on in the race if you do have someone behind you coming through turn 5, because it is a bit of a blind turn.
This is encouraging for Freddie De La Rosa, who gains a lot of ground from that spin. He's now only 7 seconds back from Tarbox. Has to dispense with Paul Hamilton of the GTC class before he can get to him, though. Elsewhere in the GT3s, Peter Hebron and Tim Collier are fighting for podium position.
Yeah, Hebron trying to hold Collier off.
Excuse me, for 4th, not a podium. Hebron in the 2nd of the GT3 Ferraris, and right now doesn't seem to have the top end compared to this Mercedes, who closes in at a rate of knots. Down into the braking, though, he's not brave enough to send one up the inside.
And the guy who is coming at breakneck speeds is Drew Litke back there. Well, we'll give you that interval, 6 seconds. He'll be in this battle in a couple laps at the rate he's going right now. Let's see if Collier makes the move going into 1. Nope.
You see Litke's lap time update on the bottom of your screen there. His previous lap had been a little off the pace. I think he made a bit of a mistake. Actually, Litke's about to lose a bit of time to this battle because he's about to get lapped by Humberto Roca.
And Roca does not.
Yeah, Litke's holding up Roca. This is allowing Ooms to catch in again.
How aggressive is the Canadian going to be? Sizing up Roca, who swings off to the left side. Drew Litke holds off to the right, trying to let them through. Brakes early. And they're by.
And that cost Litke almost 0.7 of a second in when he was chasing down Collier.
But what does it cost Roca? Because we saw Rooms having better top-end speed, I would say, on the back straight earlier on, and he's definitely within striking range of Roca here, Jeffrey Ooms is. Wonder if the number 97 Ferrari is going to try and make an attempt. He's going to have to go on the outside, but if he's able to hold his line, this will switch to the inside for the exit of the chicane. Roca drives it in deep and retains the top position for now. Ooms isn't giving up the fight just yet.
Oh, he is right on top of that rear spoiler. He gets a good run off of it. Defensive move from the Floridian as Roca takes the inside into turn 1, but I could see an over-under happening, and indeed, look at that switching back. Here comes Jeffrey Ooms, not brave enough through turn 2 to hold it down to the inside of 3, and he backs off.
We'll have another opportunity on the back straight this time around if he can just ham with Roca. They still have 9 seconds in change over Darlin, and a mistake by Roca is an opportunity for Ooms.
Closes in once again. We're seeing an incredibly patient Jeffrey Ooms calculating, figuring out what is the smartest move.
Gotta love how all this is making Paul Darlin, the Ferrari with no hood, the fastest car on the track right now.
All right, down the backstretch, and this time he is even closer. Jeffrey Ooms saw what Roca had for him last time. He went defensive. This time Roca goes to the outside. A little bit of a duck to the inside because they got traffic. That's Bart Workman in a GTC. He slips by. A little bit of a bad line through that second half for Jeffrey Ooms, and he loses gobs of time.
Well, that's the thing about lap traffic. There's yin for every yang, it always seems in these sports car races. One lap, the lap traffic is your friend. It was certainly Ooms' friend 2 laps ago. That time around it wasn't, and Roca was able to break away a little bit.
And now they come up on this battle with Collier. Oh, that was ducking in there. Remember, Collier was in that battle. Remember, we were documenting with Hebron. Now, Hebron's still out in front. He's got the 2 fastest cars between him now and Collier.
Boy, we're going to watch a replay. Jeffrey Ooms sliding through like a man trying to get on the subway at the last second, and somehow he avoids disaster. And in all of this, he is still on the tail of Roca after they've gotten past Hebron and Collier. Not as good of an exit out of turn 7 for the Canadian. Roca is going to be safe this time down into the chicane. This is the closest fight on track for position. Collier and Hebron are the next closest out there for the GT3s.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on the GTE lead as well, Bill. Once Weeks got by Castro, he has pulled away by a couple of seconds.
Yeah, Dexter did his best for 2 or 3 laps to try to hang in there, but yeah, now Weeks is picking him up and putting him down.
Well, I know you like your nicknames, Bill. I think the way Jordan Weeks is racing here this evening, for him, you can call him the Night Train. He is steaming through and looking strong. We haven't talked about GTC a whole lot. There was a bit of a battle up at the front a long time ago. That, of course, is broken apart. Johnson has dropped off the back by a whole 10 seconds. Honeybake Hamilton looking like he could run away with this one, but still a lot of racing yet to go.
Yeah, the most excitement they're having down here in the GTC is just getting out of the way of the cars that are coming. Let's go ahead and look at Scott Johnson right now. We're in the second in class because here comes Roca and Ooms.
Oh, we might actually want to go to Samuel Scott. Just about 10 seconds ago, Rodriguez got into the back of Scott, and he's trying to chase down Andrew Horsley, so he wants nothing to do with any car contact at the moment.
Yeah, I think Rodriguez came off of it worst, of course, because the damage will be to the front end of his 378 machine. Now, Horsley and Scott was another battle that got broken apart by lap traffic, but has since came back together. But yeah, you see, it could have been a lot worse right there.
That was where the contact was into turn 7. The downside for Scott, though, even though he got hit in the back, that's where the diffuser is. That could hurt him in the corners. Whoa, and Scott finally goes into the side of Bart Workman. We didn't see it on screen. We were on the replay. But my goodness, Scott must have nearly jumped out of his seat, realizing how quickly he was approaching. There's the replay on that action. Ugh.
Whoa.
I am starting to suspect that Samuel is hurting in the corners there, as he had trouble coming through turn 5 as well.
Meanwhile, the battle for the overall lead could be brewing again soon. Nooms still behind Roker. Although now that we're about half an hour into this race, I've got to start wondering, and here we go!
Boy, that commentator's instinct coming in handy there, Sam. As Roca is the first to blink.
Paul Hamilton being shown as off. He's back on course now.
Is this going to free up Ooms, though? These cars do have tire blankets, so they will get hot tires when they come out. And is that going to allow Ooms to be able to make better time? Are his worn out tires going to be... Excuse me, are they going to prevent him from leapfrogging his competitor? Roca being the only Ford coming out now.
Man, we've got a whole gaggle of traffic right now
sure
heading
do.
down into turn 6, being led by Scott Johnson, Jimmy Humer's in it, Peter Hebron, Tim Collier. All these drivers might not necessarily be as worried about racing each other as they are just trying to get out of each other's way.
So here's a pass. This is Hebron and Collier here. Now they've got the slower car on the outside of Johnson. Are they going to go 3 wide?
Slower in the corners, not in a straight line. The GTC Porsches have a lot of oomph, and you're seeing it right here as he pulls away even. And then in the braking zone, that's where they finally slip by Johnson. Collier, because of the traffic, a little bit too timid to try 3 wide with Hebron.
And look back at the last car in line there right behind Johnson. It is Litke. Remember we talked about it. He's starting to run these guys down now. He's only about 1.5 seconds behind Collier. This is going to heat up. This Hebron-Collier thing's going to heat up as soon as Litke gets there.
Interesting strategy call from Jeffrey Ooms, our new leader. He has stayed out and not responded to Roca's pit.
Nobody has. Roca, so far the only driver to make a scheduled stop.
I got to feel Roca must have been pretty confident that he was faster and maybe thought Ooms was just hanging on to his coattails. We're going to see now that these guys are separated who can run the fastest laps when they're not helping each other out.
Well, Roca's got to be glad he wasn't 10 seconds back of where he was, because that's where another Hornet's Nest is, with Liam Park leading Freddie De La Rosa. Freddie, by the way, has got by Robert Tarbox Jr. for position. Robert Tarbox Jr. struggling to get by Bart Workman right behind us right now. So Freddie's charge through the GTE fields begins.
Let's go to Hebron real quick as they're side by side into the chicane. And I think Collier's going to get the pass made.
It was a long time coming, but Tim Collier finally was able to get past the Mid-South driver. Certainly had to play a patient game.
See Drew Lidke not too far behind us. As a matter of fact, Andrew Horsley in the GTE there, going by Peter Hebron, will bring Hebron into the clutches of Lidke, or would do if it wasn't for Samuel Scott now making his way through.
Right, well, Scott is in a battle for that position. That's a battle for 4th. So Scott's in a hurry to get through there as well.
Yeah, to catch up with Andrew Horsley. The problem for Scott is Horsley's got by all of this traffic. Scott's still got to get by Hebron and Collier. Even if Hebron and Collier just pull over for him, it's still going to cost him a little bit of time.
And you can see Hebron not wanting to give up that corner to Samuel Scott, who slips through the inside at 6 and finally gets it done in 7.
Because this is why Hebron didn't want to give up that much time, because this is for position with Lidke.
Side by side down the backstretch, Hebron just did not get the launch off the corner, and Lidke is trying his best to take advantage of it as he slips through down into the braking. He does not go defensive, holds to the racing line. I think Lidke's got it done. Still over an hour of racing left to go here. Things got a little mixed up at the start. Cars finally finding their way back into position bit by bit.
I think Roca might be in trouble. His last lap, in fact, boy, his last lap was a 19.1. My goodness, he must have had some trouble. That compares to a 17.5 from Ooms, and that's a clean lap.
And right now, Roca is in trouble with Scott Johnson because he's caught him at the worst part of the track. As really, even though Roca's so much faster than Johnson, there's no way Johnson can go down those S's to let him by.
And this is exactly what happened last lap to cause that slow lap, Bill. It was Rodriguez behind him in that green and black Mercedes.
Yeah, so remember, Roca is out there basically racing Ooms right now, even though they're separated by 38 seconds.
There you see our overall leader, Ooms.
Hey, someone else coming into the pits. Paul Darling. You think he'll get a new hood while he's at it, or will he say, no, I actually kind of like my car like this?
He was doing okay.
It shedded extra weight.
Not sure iRacing is going to agree with that. I think they may make him take one.
Well, Darling, the driver from the Mitten State, going to come in, see if he could get a fresh bonnet. Hits his marks cleanly, and it does pop into place. Believe that was one of his spare cars.
His only spare car.
But he was able to hang on until the pit window opened, so that's kind of nice.
The only thing is now, if he accrues any more damage, he is going to have to wait for repairs next time.
And you will have to be careful on pit exit here. Robert Tarbox Jr. right behind him. Obviously, Tarbox still has to make an extra stop, but he could still try and get ahead of Darlin and ruin Darlin's strategy. But that didn't happen. Darlin exited the pits in front of him.
Got a little bit lucky, timed it just right. Otherwise, Tarbox could have slowed him down significantly. So former third place driver Paul Darling slots back into 7th. This bumps Roca up to 5th.
Tim Collier announces he'll be pitting this time around.
He's leading quite a gaggle of cars as well. Hamilton, Libke, and Hebron behind him.
Ooh, almost overshot the pit entry there. Not an easy pit entry, mind you. You see that from the onboard.
Oh yes, it's incredibly easy to mess up. In fact, Bill, there's been a few times we've seen drivers slam it into the pit wall where the cones are.
Yeah, it's it doesn't get enough attention as it should. It really is a tougher, one of the harder pit lanes. Kind of sneaks up on you.
Jordan Weeks leading the way in the GT3s. He's extended that gap over Castro. The main man is 5 seconds behind now.
Ooms just got around Weeks. The two leaders in classes were side by side.
How are the lap times comparing now for Ooms and Roca? Has Roca been able to pick up the pace?
Well, Ooms' last one was an 18.5, and I think it was a little bit of trouble he had with traffic. That compares to Roca, who had a 17.6. So yeah, he knocked off about 0.8 of a second. I'm not sure if it's impossible to tell if it's pace because so much depends on the traffic you run into. Right now, Ooms is coming up on the back of Workman. This is going to slow him down.
I'll tell you, 17.6 is a really good lap there.
Yeah.
Traffic giveth and the traffic taketh. It's going to be the story of the day all day long.
Peter Hebron into the pits.
Another driver taking their strategy. I don't anticipate, unless things change, us to see a lot fewer cars, because right now the only retirement that we have of drivers that did start the race is David Slee. Ralph Kimmerer was a did not start, despite putting in a qualifying time.
Yeah, and you guys in the GTCs, I'm sorry I'm not giving you much love, but pretty much it's been Hamilton, Johnson, and Workman. They're all separated by about 20 seconds each.
Surprised we haven't heard an outlandish story about one of their backgrounds yet.
I've been away from the series too long, man.
So, Things are a little bit jumbled up, so if we give you the order, the top order of each of the classes, it won't really be representative. We need to wait for the drivers to come in to execute their strategy.
I can say this, though. When Roca came out, the gap between him and Ooms was 38 seconds. It is now 41 seconds. So Roca's not having the best of it right now.
With how close they were when he pitted, too, that is any change in the amount of that gap will be significant.
Sam, interesting pit window. It's just kind of just little by little these guys are coming in. No, it's not a pit party.
No, well, these guys had a long practice session, and I'm sure they do plenty of testing and practicing throughout the week, especially considering many of them race for teams, that they probably all know when their pit windows are, and a driver like Humberto Roca, who was leading the race at the time, who could say, hey, this is when I want to make my stops. I can afford to play a little bit because I have control of the race.
There we see Roca running in 5th. The only real battle we have out on track right now is between Darling and Tarbox, and that's not really a battle, as Tarbox has yet to pit. Darling is slowly pulling away, although him being held up by Paul Hamilton certainly not helping.
And then just to follow up on the Collier-Hebron battle that we had been watching, they both made their stops, and that's just gone away now. The interval there is about 21 seconds. Hebron had a stop of about, oh my goodness, it was another 10 seconds. He was 10 seconds longer from cone to cone.
So maybe
tires.
Yeah.
I was going to say, possibly playing a slightly different strategy from everybody else.
Roca spins, gets back on track. That's going to cost him time.
And that was into turn 1. Going to see here on the replay. Looks like he was just off the apex, and that hurt him on the exit, or maybe understeered wide. Just a wheel onto the curb, sent him around.
Right in front of Litke and De La Rosa.
Sure, Roca thanking his lucky stars he didn't hit anything in all of that. All right, GTC leader Paul Hamilton comes in for his stop. If you're just
Jimmy Hume in from GTE, I think it's starting to get busy, Joe.
Certainly seems like we're hitting the end of the pit window. If you're just joining us, this is round 7 of the Ricmotech.com challenge. We're racing for 100 minutes here at Road Atlanta. Jeffrey Ooms is your overall leader, but we're waiting for him to take his first pit stop. 2 expected for the day in all 3 classes.
And with Hamilton pitting, Scott Johnson takes over the GTC lead. So we have a pass for the lead in that class.
Sort of.
Well, new leader.
Our director is on your side.
I'm digging for whatever I can do down there.
Andrew Horsley is in and out of his stall.
Jeffrey Ooms coming in. Now, of course, what's significant here is when Ooms comes out of a pits with Roca's spin, you've almost got to think that Ooms is going to be in the lead of this race.
I'd say that's a safe bet.
Now, of course, Samuel Scott and Freddie De La Rosa might stay out an extra lap, so Ooms won't be in the actual lead, but he'll be in the virtual lead.
Roca's coming down the backstretch now, just behind De La Rosa.
Nah, Scott's going to come in. I was hoping we get a new leader, so he's going to pit as well.
And De La Rosa defended it first against Roca.
Yes. Roca goes by.
Wonder if he wasn't aware. Ooms had a long stop. In fact, De La Rosa comes in. I think, did he hit the wall?
Well, it could be a scheduled stop. It seems this is when all our GT leaders are coming in. But anyhow, Ooms comes out of the pits ahead of Roca. Not too much of a surprise after what we saw with Roca. The number is 4 seconds. What can Roca do now that they're near the same piece of tarmac again?
Ooh, the wall that I was referring to for Freddie De La Rosa was the pit entry wall, actually, and I think he did just clip it. Not sure if it's worth a replay or not, but if we're looking for a little bit of excitement while we wait for pit stops to finish out, could be worth watching. You can see just that little bit of advance, then he moves back to the line. Not sure if maybe he realized what was going on and that Roca wasn't worth fighting, but then this late decision, once again, like we keep talking about, the entry to this pit is tricky.
I'm not sure if he did hit the wall that De La Rosa knows he gets a free repair, because I think he was in the pits a long time right there.
Coltoff in from third spot in the GT3s.
Maybe he was just getting tires. I was just curious if De La Rosa was doing optional repairs, but Lidkey in too.
Robert Tarbox, the last of our GTEs yet to pit, comes in for his. As is typical, our GT3 drivers mostly going long.
Yeah, Weeks and Castro still racing.
In fact, it looks like only 4 of our GT3 drivers have come in for... 3 of them have come in for pits. Koltoff, Lidkey, Collier, and it is 4, Peter Hebron. Oh, and Dexter Castro having problems trying to get into the pits with lap traffic. That was Scott Johnson who decided he wanted to come in at the same time. Great job by Castro for keeping that car from turning around. It was getting all kinds of squirrely.
Boy, he was trying to get it in, though. He was determined to take that pit stop until he finally realized, all right, I can't get it in there.
Unfortunately, that's going to cost him quite a bit of time. That being a fast portion of the circuit, slowing down and then picking it back up, I'm guessing cost him at least 2 seconds.
Pretty good, Joe. He did a 23 flat compared to what he was running like a 21 flat. So, yeah, about a second and a half is what he lost.
Well, with Johnson pitting, that gives Hamilton the lead back in GTC.
Oh, Freddie De La Rosa doing some drifting and some lawn mowing in his Ferrari.
And watch the replay. The world's most expensive lawnmower, potentially. As he does gather it back together. That was turn 5. It's going to be out of turn 7 that this happens. Not a corner that you see cars get loose on entry in often. You can see, wow, fantastic catch by De La Rosa.
Is it a Ferrari? Is it a drift car? Is it a lawnmower?
Weeks is in, finally.
Castro too.
Now, in all the excitement, I'm not sure if we've reported the gap between Ooms and Roca, but it's currently 4 seconds between them.
Yeah, a little bit closer this lap actually, 3.6 seconds.
And that should be all of our field in for pit stops. Yes, indeed. So, let's give you the rundown after the first set of pit stops. Jeffrey Ooms leads the way, having now officially overtaking the lead. Humberto Roca is giving chase not too far behind despite a spin. Paul Darling rounds out the podium in the GTE class, with Jimmy Hume running in 4th well back, and Andrew Horsley, with a problem right now.
And that costs him 5th place to Samuel Scott in class. Those two have traded that back and forth a couple of times today.
We're going to watch this replay, then we'll go to Sam with the GT3s.
Don't think Horsley got his nose into anything there. I think his what do horses have? A snout? I think it's okay.
Yeah, I just like how it's Samuel and Horsley going back and forth, and I know, well, I think I've gotten on quite well with horses during the time, but this Samuel and this Horsley having some difficulty.
Well, if we're done horsing around, let's go to Sam for those GT3 top 5.
Alright, neighbour in the GTE class on the list is the GT3s, being led by Jordan Weeks right now, after just making his pit stop ahead of Dexter Castro, who also just made his stop. These guys were late into the pits, but they all got cycled through eventually. Then we have a Ferrari, so a Mercedes, a BMW and a Ferrari currently on the GT3 podium. Can't really complain too much at the other class as an advantage, as Trampus Kolthoff is rounding out those top 3 spots. Tim Collier, seen him in a few interesting situations today, but he's doing a good job 4th in class. And Drew Lidke trying to make his way back up through the field after some early trouble. He rounds up the top 5. Bill?
You know, I'm getting confused with GTE, GT3, and GTC, so I'm taking the Hurricane naming technique from now on. I'm calling this GT Carla down here, and it is Paul Hamilton is your leader, Scott Johnson is in 2nd, and Bart Workman is in 3rd. None of those drivers within 20 seconds of each other. Joe?
Thanks for that, Tropical Storm Bill. So, with that, we have 53 minutes left on the clock. We're going to come back after a short break, and we'll take you to the end here on the Global Sim Racing channel for round 7 of the Ricmotech.com challenge. Welcome back to Road Atlanta here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Oh, as we need to go to Dexter Castro immediately because he has hit the wall. Second place driver in the GT3 has had a major incident in turn 5. And I was just about to say we leave for all of a minute and the house catches on fire.
Sure did.
Gonna watch on board. We have a number of incidents actually to cover that happened while we were gone. Watching the steering wheel for Dexter.
This one the most significant though, I think. Running second.
Boy, it happened so quick through there. So we come back live. I believe we had a few others to cover. I think we're starting with Samuel Scott into turn 1, dealing with some traffic.
Yeah, and you'll see this, he was ahead of Andrew Horsley. We've been talking about how these two keep switching 5th and 6th, keep switching it back. Well, Samuel Scott went off to the barnyard and the horse got by. Okay, I'll stable the horse puns for now, but Andrew Horsley back up into 5th place.
And then we're going to go to Liam Park, who also found trouble in turn 5. Not as much as his GT3 compatriot Castro. This Canadian driver slides it in there and manages not to hit anything. And then, of course, there's Kenneth Rodriguez, also into turn 1. Wow, look at the mess on this one. I actually haven't seen this replay yet.
I think he just got scared.
Cars all around, and thanks to the kitty litter, he doesn't slide too far and keeps on going.
Talking about drivers who should be scared, though, our overall leader, Jeffrey Humes.
With Sam, a ton of cars in front of him here with Roca coming, but he's got Ooms has Tarbox in front of him, Park, Johnson, trouble from ahead and behind.
I was going to say, Ooms should be scared, if anything, because Roca has closed the gap since we last looked.
Yeah, Roca had a lot of bad luck during the round of stops. He caught a lot of bad traffic during that time. Now it's Ooms' turn. But the other thing we've been keeping an eye on throughout all of this, Bill and Joe, is Freddie De La Rosa. Even though he's a lap down, he's been able to hold on to these top 2. Boy, Jeffrey Humes trying to get by Tarbox Jr. here. And this will cost Tarbox Jr. a position, because we talk about De La Rosa. And Roca's off.
Wow, middle of the race has turned into chaos. We're going to watch this one from above and try to figure out what in the world is going on in all this, because there was just an incredible mess of cars.
That's Tarbox that goes wide left, and now watch Roca in the red, white, and blue machine. He kind of chickens out as well.
Well, it's Scott Johnson that he runs up to much quicker than he thought.
Let's stay with Roca. We'll keep an eye on this replay, because watch what Roca then has to deal with through turn 5. Liam Park goes off, and it sends everyone everywhere. Roca's able to get through it all.
And who's that he almost got into the back of there? I think that was it was Johnson that he gave a center punch to.
Yeah, they were all reacting, I think, because of Liam Park being off. They weren't sure where he was. Oh, that's a hard hit.
Oh man, Liam Park, he screwed it up once, and the second time was not nearly as lucky as the first. In the matter of half a lap, it just utterly fell apart for Humberto Roca. He was down to a second behind Ooms and is now 3.5, and he has damage on the front of his car.
But he's been 3.5 seconds behind Ooms before and caught him back up. Meanwhile, Castro update, he's still out on track.
Without having taken his repair, looking a little bit like that Ferrari from before, missing a hood.
Got 22-second cushion back to Collier, so I think what he's just going to try to do is limp it around until he can get it for his final stop.
Now, one thing we should mention that could play a difference down the line in this battle between Ooms and Roca. Remember, Ooms had a longer first stop. Now, he ran longer, and we talked about this during the break. We suspect that Ooms could have had a longer fill, which means he'll have a shorter fill on his second stop, which means the gap between himself and Roca will increase.
And I'm going to ask a question from a fan point of view. Since he filled it up, I would assume his tank is much heavier. Would that mean he's a little slower, perhaps, because Roca has less in the tank? Are these cars
actually, that's a good point too, as
susceptible
well.
to that?
So, yeah, because Roca's been out long enough, he's been burning it off. However, he has worn out his tires some as well. And Sam Scott with more trouble into turn 5. And boy, we might want an onboard from the leader in the GT3, Jordan Weeks, because as we see in this replay, as he takes a tumble, wow. Let's go on board Weeks. It almost looks like he went underneath him.
Oh, I think he might have. The car was just about to roll on him. I think he slipped out before the mattress fell.
Mattress is a little bit softer than that.
Phew.
Well, Samuel Scott has gotten going again, but his car is badly crabbing. He's going to try and drive it back to the pit still.
This has been the most wrecks I've seen in any, I'd say maybe a 15-minute period of any CMS race we've covered here on the Global Sim Racing channel. This is just incredible stuff.
Well, it was so clean for the first half of the race, Joe, and I wonder if the drivers were getting complacent.
It's only thanks to these, as he has some trouble getting the car into the pits there, does Samuel Scott. I'd say it's only due to the free repair that these drivers have that we have so many still out on track. Again, our only retiree so far is David Slee. He might be joined, though, because I'm not sure if Samuel Scott, since he's already used his free repair...
No, he doesn't.
Oh. Didn't we see his hood return before?
I think that was Darlin.
Oh, that's right. That was Darling.
Yeah, he was going for the Paul Darlin paint job, yeah.
And talking about Darling, let's go there right now. He's got a mess in front of him. He just got around. That's Paul Hamilton who backed out. He's got Tarbox in front of him now as he's trying to negotiate this traffic.
And Tarbox is a lapped car, even though they're both GTEs. He's getting the blue flags. He should be letting him by here. Going to be an easy move as we see Darling switch over to the racing line. And now Tarbox finally lets him through.
Darling in third, 11 seconds off the leader. So if he's close enough to be in striking distance. If something were to happen up front at Ooms, if Ooms and Roca were to start racing each other, those guys get together.
And we should point out, despite all the excitement we just had, we have 41 minutes left on the clock. So there is a lot of racing left to go.
I don't want to give a commentator's curse to anyone, so let's just say Jimmy Hume is having a horrible race and he's been all over the place in fourth position. But he's in fourth position. That's the point I'm trying to get to here.
Kind of in no man's land, 16 seconds behind third place Darling. Another 23 seconds back to Horsley.
Hey, is this our second round of scheduled stops starting with Pete Hebron?
I was just about to mention that. I noticed that out of the corner of my eye as well. I'm pretty sure this is scheduled.
Let's not forget it was the GT3 cars that went longest during the first stint, it seemed. So maybe they're the ones that can kick off this round of stops to make it to the end. Dexter Castro.
Yeah, the farther you can go, the earlier that final window opens up. So he's coming in with 40 minutes left of racing.
And you can't blame Castro for coming in as soon as this window opens.
Right.
Should still have his free repair. Now, I'm seeing him behind Trappist Kolthoff. Was he ahead of him before he came into the pits?
Well, Kolthoff is a different class, is he? Or that?
Nope, he is the GT3 Ferrari, one of two out there.
Well, then, yeah, Joe, I think you're right. I think Koltov got him. I saw it on my timing and scoring, but my rods and cones get those colors confused. So, yeah, Koltov was definitely... I thought that was the color of the Ford. But, of course not. There's only one Ford out there, and that's Umberto Roca.
Not by much, though. Koltov was only a couple of turns ahead of Castro, so now with a clean car, if Castro can put on a good pace again, as meanwhile we got trouble in turn 1. Andrew Horsley has spun it, and I think he may have brushed the turn 1 wall.
Oh, yeah, Horsley. He was chomping at the bit to get through there quickly, and then, yeah, the car just turned on him. Boy, front and side damage.
That was more than a brush.
Yeah, it was a whip.
We'll be here all week, folks. So, Horsley is able to continue on. The damage was not too much that he doesn't have to be turned into glue quite yet.
Guess he couldn't rein in the car, huh?
De La Rosa just made contact with Rodriguez, and Rodriguez still trying to save it. He's saying something over the radio. I'm sure it's not nice, because the S's is not a place where you try and pass interclass traffic, and that's what De La Rosa did to him.
He did have a nose in, and they were both able to continue. Rodriguez, talk about a close moment, though. Let's watch this replay. Stay on Rodriguez here. Off track, and then comes back across and narrowly avoids that wall.
Yeah, of course. I don't actually know what he was saying on the radio. I just know he activated his mic. I don't know if it was, Freddie, what were you doing? Or, ah! It was one or the other.
It was a simple, come on, guys. So I think Rodriguez has gotten hit a couple times, remember?
Yeah, and then just to follow up on that story, Freddie just kind of pulled over then and let Roca go by. And Sam, you've been watching it, how what De La Rosa has been doing in relationship to Ooms has kind of been hanging right with him, even though he's a lap down.
Well, the amazing thing about that now, of course, is that with the leaders, Ooms and Roca, lapping some GT traffic, and De La Rosa is following them, he's been able to pass some of those cars a lap down. As De La Rosa just had a bit of a moment himself exiting turn 5, but keeps it pointing in the right direction. He's now up to 6th place in class. Tim Collier into the pits.
Now, Roca's cut down the lead to less than 2 seconds. He did have a little bit of damage on the front of that car, but it doesn't seem to have hurt him.
Seen a lot of damaged cars out here today that are still driving okay.
Yeah, that's a 2-second interval, plus Roca had an on-track spin between now and his last pit stop. So, yeah, although fans, I don't think get too excited about this, because I think it's going to be a pay me now, pay me later type thing, because I think Roca's going to have a long stop. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, we're about to find out.
There we go.
Roca into the pits.
De La Rosa follows his best friend.
Well, why not at this point? I mean, it's been helping De La Rosa. Might as well just let him lead the way through the crowd and just hold on to his hand. Floridian comes and hits his stall perfectly. Rodriguez complaining again. Oh, and he is, in fact, stopped on track. And it was Paul Darling this time trying to sneak to the... Oh, no, he wasn't trying to sneak to the inside. He just... Looks like he got a little bit too close to him through turn 2 right here. Let's watch it from above.
Maybe a little net code there, but just he turns him and boy, no, he got him.
And he could say that, I mean, Rodriguez could have been a little bit farther to the edge of the track, but that's gambling with your car there, expecting them to be all the way over.
Yeah, I feel there does come a point when you're involved in a couple, two or three interclass traffic battles that you gotta wonder, hey, maybe should be backing off a little more for these guys. Meanwhile, De La Rosa is in for a long stop. Roca's long gone.
That slots him back down into 4th, and I'm kind of with you, Sam. There's the old saying with relationships that the The only thing in common with all of your breakups is you?
Oh, I like that, Joe.
But I've always been single. Is the reason I'm always single with me?
I can't help you there, buddy. But we're watching Roca in that lonely Ford, working his way around.
Nice trick.
I think Sam made a good point here, though, that Roca's stop was not as long as I would have anticipated.
Right now, Ooms is still out on track. He's just ahead of the car of Robert Tarbox, who he is lapped and had to back away from him so that he didn't get involved with our overall leader. Ooms comes past the pit entry and decides not to pit.
Hey! Horsley is in the pits.
Oh.
So he's pulling into his stall?
Oh, we've lost so many viewers today, I'm sure. Horsley has used his fast repair to get back out on track, so nice, clean, spick and span car.
Let me just correct myself for a minute. Roca's stop was long. It was about the same as Jeffrey Ooms' first stop, which I thought was long. So
that sounds a little bit more correct.
Yeah. I looked up and I compared the times together. I go, oh, gee, Roca's was about the same as Ooms, but I forgot Ooms took his big stop the first time, so I still think Roca might be in trouble here.
Speaking of a long stop, Andrew Horsley, now he's finally done. I was going to say, he was in there for quite a while, but he exits out 6 overall. And in fact, he's just behind his competitor on track. That's Sam Scott right ahead of him. That is for position.
Again.
That's right, these two were fighting before. Not what Sam Scott wanted at this point.
Colt off into the pits. De La Rosa still in the pits. Or is he back in another time?
I'm seeing 2 stops for De La Rosa so far. Oh, and meanwhile, pass for position. Horsley and Scott going at it. Horsley is able to slipstream by, come down to the braking of the chicane, and back into the draft goes Sam Scott, having a little bit of a look, but not close enough. A little bit off the apex, and that's going to hurt him on the second half. And just look at the time that he loses just by going in a little bit too hot.
Watching Horsley gallop away there.
Extends that gap to 1.5 seconds just in that one corner. Nice move. Meanwhile, one of our other Ferraris in a different class, Kolthoff, in and out.
Yeah, Samuel Scott, meanwhile, has gone off course. He's spun it coming out of turn 1. Now, Robert Tarbox Jr. is the only driver he'll have to worry about, and I'll give you more detail on that in a moment.
You're going to see on the replay, Scott just loses the rear end.
Yes, so Robert Tarbox Jr. does go by Samuel Scott, and the reason he doesn't have to worry about De La Rosa anymore, De La Rosa has retired from the race, our second retirement.
You see Robert Tarbox. Amazing that in all of this, only 2 retirements so far. Let's check in to our GTC class real quick, as Paul Hamilton still leads the way. And the impressive thing here is right now it's by over 45 seconds.
But he still has a stop to make. He's up on 45 over Workman. Johnson has made both of his stops, but he is behind those guys by quite a bit. In fact, Johnson behind by a minute 12 actually to get to Hamilton. So Hamilton should be able to come in, get that stop made, have a cup of coffee, and still get out well in front.
Kolthoff in the pits. I think this was the second lap in a row.
Right. This is huge. This is going to be good news for Lipke. I think Lipke's going to get the spot. Something must have happened to Trappist.
Well, speeding penalty is a drive-through, unless I'm mistaken.
No, you do have to stop in your stall if you get a speeding penalty.
I think he just got a bit of damage repaired there. I wonder if he had some kind of incident happen to him on track.
I'm going back to check to see if something happened to him. I'm not seeing anything. He just came in and then, or came out and then went right back in the next lap around. In fact, he's still in his stall. This is too long for a penalty, I think, but he's going now.
Damage has already been done, I'm sure.
So that's going to move Drew Lipke up, I believe, to third position in class. That's a great recovery from Drew after early problems. Of course, we're still waiting for Jordan Weeks to come in and take that last stop.
There's still a race yet to go, and the way this thing has been going, I expect drivers could still yet make mistakes.
Weeks is doing so well, he's actually mixing up with the tail end of a GTE field build.
Yeah, once he got around Castro, he just gradually started opening it up. Weeks still needs to come in, as does Ooms and Darling, Hume. Those are the big names.
Michigander looking for his pit stall on the Ferrari.
Now, Roca is just heading into 10A and B right now, so I would think Roca's probably going to be a good Darling pretty easily here.
Jimmy Hume is in as well. So that's second and third in our GTEs entering the pits. This is going to gift that back to Humberto Roca, who goes through the final turn right now.
The question is, can Horsley get there? Horsley now just going through that final corner. Darling's still in his stall.
Well, Horsley's already had his pit stop.
He might be a lap down, though. They are not on the same lap, so Horsley going to get his lap back.
That's correct, because Horsley has had a number of problems this race.
There they come out. Horsley comes out right next to Darling, but there's a lap separating, even though it's Horsley running in fifth, Darling in
Alright,
third.
now things getting big in GTE. Jeffrey Ooms into the pits. How much time will this cost him? We don't expect that much. There's only 27 minutes left to go in the race. Of course, that means and in trouble for Paul Darling.
Oh, in turn 5 once again. Now he doesn't hit anything, just spins it sideways. Does a great job of just locking that car into place.
tire warmers, but that was his out lap, and he came out, we talked about it, he came out behind Horsley.
Ooms already rolling out of his pits, and Roca is nowhere near the finish line yet. Ooms is going to have a huge lead for the final stint of this race.
Roca just comes across the line now as Ooms enters turn 4. Timing and scoring is catching up.
About 15 seconds, yeah.
Sounds about right, considering the spin we saw from Roca usually loses you about 10 seconds on track. Well, it was a bit of a wish and a prayer, but Roca looks like he might be bested today. He has to keep pushing. Ooms could still yet make his own mistake.
Top 4 in points in GTE right now. Jeffrey Ooms, Humberto Roca, Paul Darling, Jimmy Hume. That's how they run on track.
In fact, we're only waiting on a couple more cars to make their final stops, and we'll give you the rundown before we get to the end. Right now, Jordan Weeks is yet to take his second stop. So has Kenneth Rodriguez.
Samuel Scott goes for a spin. Robert Tarbox Jr. goes for a spin.
Samuel Scott going for a spin is losing its newsworthiness in my book here. Seems like we've seen this more than once this race.
Well, this was in turn 3, which is very easy to do. Now let's go to Tarbox. This was in 5, another popular place to lose it. This one, not even quite a spin, just a little bit of a slide, and he brings it back together. Actually, wow. You can see on the replay here, that car could have so easily steered its way to the inside wall, but somehow he locked it up. Granted, boy, the day that we get flat spots on these tires, there's going to be a number of drivers that will be taking a few extra pit stops.
Paul Hamilton pits from the lead in the GT Carlos, and he is in and out comfortably. Still waiting for Bart Workman to take his final stop.
And you see the Egypt Porsche of Paul Hamilton. Whenever we see these drives of cars that just stretch a lead out, Bill, it looks easy, but one thing that I think people forget about a lot is when you have no one to race against, it's so easy to lose your focus.
Yeah, I can relate to that as I'm so slow. That is often the case.
Oh.
I lose my focus from the back of the field. I've talked to a lot of fast drivers, a lot of aliens that say they get into more trouble when they race at 90% than if they're racing at 99%. They like to keep the rhythm.
Have to just keep pushing. We're looking at second place Workman, who's also waiting to take his second stop.
Workman and Weeks still need to come in for those final stops. Apparently they're pitting in alphabetical order.
Yeah, because Rodriguez is in. That's an R.
New Jersey driver gets to his stall. Seen a little bit of damage on that car. I'm not sure if he's already taken his free repair, but it doesn't look like he is taking it this pit stop.
Oh, wow, a bit of a scary moment with Horsley going off in the grass. The scary thing there in turn 5 was he's got a huge pack of cars behind him and almost came back on into Paul Hamilton.
That was
down
right
at turn 6, yeah.
Right in the GTC leader, boy. You talk about losing focus. There it was.
Well, the prancing Horsley can keep his Ferrari on track and get going once more. And keep himself in 5th. He's still got about a 26-second gap ahead of Tarbox, but keeps making mistakes like that. That position is under threat.
Got to put yourself in the helmet of Hamilton. He's got a 17-second lead and it almost goes away.
Darling into the pits. This is not scheduled and he was running 3rd in class. So now we mentioned how there wouldn't be a shake-up in the points in GTE. Well, now there could be a little bit because that will move Hume up into 3rd in class. Let's see if he loses 4th to Horsley.
This is awful early for...
And Paul Hamilton's in trouble, our GTC leader.
Oh, no, right after we just saw an issue for him, and he hits the wall, actually.
The car just...
Remember, no driver aids. That's in a curved braking zone up into, I believe, is that... Oh, no, that's an acceleration zone. That was in out of 4. Looks like a little bit of curb on the left side, did it?
Meanwhile, Darlin did get back out on track, 4th in class.
So Honeybake's lead now, which was 17 seconds, is now under 8 seconds and shrinking to Workman. But Workman still needs to make that stop.
About Paul Darling's extra stop, part of me wondered if it could have been he short-fueled it, but that's very early. He still had plenty of time to try and save fuel and get to the end. Unless he really short-fueled it.
Yeah, I'm going to say, he had plenty of space too. He made a whole stop and only lost 1 position.
Unfortunately, he lost well past that position. He's still got 37 seconds up to Hume, so it seems unlikely for him to gain it back.
And I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but Ooms came in, and when he made that final stop, he's done now. Sure enough, his stop was about 8 seconds faster than Roca, so it was a short fill, long fill the first time, short fill the second time. Ooms with now 15, almost 16 seconds on Roca.
Well, if Jordan Weeks and Bart Workman would see fit to take their final stop,
we got business to do.
Well, are they really going to change their positions around?
Well, Workman, he could lose a spot to Johnson, I guess.
Yeah, Johnson is only 23 seconds back,
Yeah.
and Johnson was in second before the stop. Let's go through our GTEs regardless, maybe if we start reading about... Oh, and Jimmy Hume has a big problem in turn 1. He's gone all the way to the barrier.
Now remember, he had 37 seconds over Darlin. Now I mentioned, since the commentator's curse that I never made in the first place is broke now, I mentioned how much of a clean race he had been having earlier. That's not so clean.
A big overcorrection sent him sliding out to that barrier. Thankfully, he's able to keep going. Darling, I'm seeing still at 38 seconds. Did Darling have a spin as well?
No, I think
maybe it hasn't caught up yet. The time.
Oh, there it is. Now it is, yeah.
so. It cost him about. It's down to what, about
26.
seconds.
It
Yeah,
cost
so-
him 12 seconds.
But the question is it 12 seconds? Can he maintain the gap, or is it going to shrink?
Well, that all depends on if his car's damaged or
Right.
not. But after the way we've seen cars without front clips running around here today pretty competitively, I've got to imagine Hume's okay for now.
Well, now that Sam has flirted with danger and done math on GSRC, we'll take a look at the rest of our top 5 in the GTE class. Jeffrey Ooms leading the way now that their pit stops are done. Humberto Roca, a mistake early on, put him well out of contention. Could have been 5 seconds. Instead, it is 16 as Roca holds on to second. Jimmy Hume, we just saw him have an issue and able to continue on. Hopefully that car is handling well enough to not lose too much time. Paul Darley.
Oh, I'm going to interrupt. Jordan Weeks is in. Is this scheduled? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All right. I thought he was done.
That's the
All
one
right.
we were waiting on.
All right, sorry.
All right, so Paul Darling sitting in 4th, also with his fair share of offs and contact today. And then the driver, incredibly, in 5th is Andrew Horsley. That is the top 5 in our GTEs. Let's go to Sam for the GT3 top 5.
Yeah, Andrew Horsley needs to embrace our horse puns. We'll give him a lot more screen time that way. Jordan Weeks, after making his scheduled stop after waiting for what seemed like weeks, he comes back out on track in the leading class. He's got quite a good lead over Dexter Castro, running in second in class, despite hitting some trouble early on today. Talk about hitting trouble early on and coming back through the field. What about Drew Lidke in the number 21 car? He's currently rounding out the podium in the GT3 class. And then we have the Ferrari of Trampus Kolthoff in 4th position. And rounding out the top 5 is Tim Collier in his Mercedes. So we have Mercedes, BMW, Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes in the top 5 in GT3.
I'm going to go down to GTC anyway here. It's Hamilton out in front. Bart Workman is in second, but he's beginning to upset me now as he goes around one more time. He still needs to make that last stop. He's got about a 20-second cushion on Scott Johnson, so I expect Johnson is going to move up to third there, or move up to second ahead of Workman once Workman makes that final stop. And I apologize for getting excited there. Whenever we do those rundowns, pit stops are supposed to be done. And Weeks should not
Caught you by
have been pitting in.
surprise.
Yeah, I shouldn't have been pitting in the middle of our rundown, but everything's good.
Yeah, no change. Not good news for Roca, of course, is that there's really been no change between our top 2 overall. Still has a 16-second lead with less than 16 minutes to go.
Indeed, we're in the final quarter of an hour now. Most drivers have a big gap between one another, and at this point, it is down to racing the track. And as we've seen, that is easier said than done here.
Yeah,
And racing inter-class traffic as well. Paul Hamilton got a few cars going by him right now. Hey, Bart Workman, pitting in. Bill, he just announced it.
There we
Last
go.
of our GTC cars. The Workman's
of our
Day
cars.
is over, at least for this stint.
Scott Johnson working his way through the 10AB little combination there, through 11, through 12, out on into the main straight, and he should be able to pick up second position in class.
Oh, Workman overshot his stall. That's not good news considering I think Workman was banking on a very short pit stop here.
Bad news is Workman's going to have a longer stop. Good news is there's nobody behind to catch you, Bart.
And he's still going to get on the podium.
There we go.
A bit of damage on the right front of that Porsche, it looks like, but shouldn't affect him too badly. That is the last of our pit stops here in this race, scheduled ones at least, as Workman has a little bit of a quarrel with the cones.
This Ooms guy, he's good.
I believe he first showed up in the Autobahn series that we noticed him. Then jumped over to the Predator series in the Pack Majors. Now here in CMS, Jeffrey Ooms, the Canadian, proving to be fast no matter what company you put him in. Now you may have been noticing, if you're watching SimRacing for the first time and aren't experienced with this.
Sam Scott off again if anyone wants to document that.
Put it on your stat sheet.
Yeah.
You may have been noticing, or maybe you haven't been noticing, that the track is changing underneath the drivers. Certain corners getting very, very black. The exits of corners starting to show little bits of brown and whatnot. These, the sim here in iRacing, just like real life, does rubber up. It does get dirty offline. Marbles start to build. You can see them, in fact, there on your screen. So drivers, as the laps tick off, need to worry more and more about whether they get out of the racing groove. And with interclass traffic, that can be something that you have to do, unfortunately, relatively often.
What amazes me about iRacing is the way that they do that. It's actually the tires that cause that. They don't do any shortcuts and just say, all right, let's paint the track a little darker and make it stickier. Every one of those little pieces of marble can probably be tracked back to the tire it came off of.
Each car has an effect. If the drivers run a line that's not traditional, that's the line that rubbers up. It's not anything built in here, as Bill said. We ride on board with our leader of the GT3 class, with Jordan Weeks.
But Workman having a big off. I think something might have happened. His car doesn't look like it's driving right.
This is down into the chicane that this happens. It looks like he just outbrakes himself. I don't think he hits anything, though.
And Samuel Scott had a moment as well, and this is a bit bigger. Yeah, it's this one's quite significant there, Bill.
Bill, you're getting a little sassy there.
Somebody put him out of his misery.
He's able to, he didn't, if he did hit anything, it was just a little bit of a nose into the wall, and I don't see any damage there on the front, so I think he's fine. Oh, there's a little, oh, I'm sorry, it looks like maybe on the left front of the car? There's a little bit of damage there. He's only got to go for 10 more minutes, Bill. He might give him the honor of taking the checkered flag. Nobody wants to retire with less than 10 minutes to go.
Can I?
You're not getting your severance pay. So we look at our GTC leader, himself with a little bit of damage.
Oh, Samuel Scott is off. He's lost the nose of his car.
Oh, and he did tow.
He's going to take a tow to the pits this time.
This time,
You jinxed him.
I'm sorry, Sam. I really am. I'm sorry, man.
ooh, this is a hard hit down into the S's. Just lost control.
Amazingly, though, as he retires from the race, only a third DNF.
It's half crash, half euthanasia.
How are they doing over there, Bill?
Oh, Tim Collier spins out of turn 5. That's not good. He was running 5th place in class, I believe. Where's Peter Hebron? About 20 seconds behind, and Collier has a bit of damage to his front end.
Nosed it into the concrete. You're going to see out of 5 as the rear comes around. That Mercedes can't slow quick enough. He does get it back on track, and since he went in nose first, looks like no suspension damage as that thing is driving straight.
Yeah, but even if it lost just a bit of top-end speed, Hebron is now only 5 seconds behind him for that 5th in class.
Keep an eye on that gap. He's got 8 minutes to do it, which means with these guys running at about 120 something for the laps, I believe we're looking at roughly 5 or 6 laps to go for these GT3 cars.
Oh, is that another mistake there? No, he was letting Roker by.
I think I might have a battle here. Do we have a battle between Lipke here and Kolthoff?
It looks to be the case. Kolthoff has run him down. The Mercedes now very much under threat from the Ferrari.
Yeah, and if Kolthoff gets this position, that would make it a BMW, a Mercedes, and a Ferrari on the podium.
Wow, look at him close under braking for the chicane. Whatever is going on with Litke's car, Kolthoff is looking a whole lot stronger. All over the back of that rear wing. Backs off of him, coming through the final turn, tries to regroup.
Going to be a long 7.5 minutes for Drew, I think.
I'm not sure if he can hold him off for that long, the way that Kolthoff is looking. Gains on him everywhere you look. Back through 4. Has nowhere to go. Just waiting patiently now. Sizing him up. The New Yorker hounding the Canadian all over. Down into turn 6. Both of them nice and tidy. Oh, getting right up. Maybe a little bit of contact there between them. And unfortunately, as Kolthoff apologizes over the radio, did not manage to get himself a run because his momentum was interrupted by Litke. Uses the slipstream anyways. This could be his best opportunity. Peeks his nose out. Looks to the inside. Litke does not defend. And the braking distances between them as Kolthoff, though, might miss the corner. Tries to get it back on. He's into the marbles. Tries to get the power down. Litke comes back around him. Survives for another day. Woohoo! Oh, but he carries the momentum. Comes into him again. Kolthoff just cannot time it right. Slips to the inside as Litke does not defend. Now I think he's got it done.
Kolthoff actually too fast for his own good there. He just couldn't get the timing right, and he finally gets the pass made.
While all that was going on, the garage got a little bit busier with Liam Park pulling out of a race after spin out of turn 5, and Litke makes a mistake. And now that's Jimmy Hume going to go by him, but of course Jimmy Hume's car looks quite similar to Kolthoff. But the significant thing about that right now is it allows Kolthoff to build up a pretty good lead over Litke.
Litke's had a really good race. He had that early trouble, fell all the way back, fought his way up to a podium spot, and lost it there to Kolthoff at the very end.
Just to make things all the more confusing, Hume and Kolthoff, I believe, are teammates in different classes in the same car.
In the same car, yeah.
But I believe that Hume being in the GTE, has yellow headlights.
Okay, that'll help.
Yeah, and he has a yellow Ferrari stripe over the top of his windshield. You don't see that on Koltov's car here. There you go, good comparison right there. Also, the rear wing isn't supposed to be lopsided on Hume's car, it just isn't. And they're coming up on Kenneth Rodriguez, who just had an off track. I hope, even though these battles have calmed down, they're able to get by Kenneth without any issues here.
This has certainly been a race of survival. 100 minutes that they will be scheduled to run. They've run about 96 of them. 4 to go on the clock. Jeffrey Ooms is your overall leader in the GTEs. Jordan Weeks stomping the field in the GT3s, leading them. Paul Hamilton, much the same. A dominant performance, leading the way in the GTCs right now.
3 cars on the lead lap.
If this race was much longer, it could easily be 2.
About 1:06 from Ooms to Hume.
So let's see, let's play the clock game when Ooms comes across the line this time by. A lap of his takes about 1 minute 20, and 2 minutes 40 is 2 laps, so we're looking at about 3 laps left to go here.
And again, Ooms is not completely out of the woods. He does have to keep it clean. Only 14 seconds between himself and Roca.
And of course, there's always that fuel thin that comes into play whenever you don't want it to.
I leave Bill to talk about those issues.
I just, as hard as I try, I don't think there's any way I can go there. I think everyone's good. If Ooms runs out of fuel, he should have a 1 race penalty.
Paul Darlin in trouble? I think he is. He's up from the gravel in turn 5.
Yeah, this is important because he's trying to stay ahead of Horsley.
I think Horsley's quite far behind him, only about 5 turns. You can't afford anything too bad.
Just a lurid, lazy slide entering 5, but probably in the best direction you could want it to go, which is out into the gravel and not towards either of the exit walls.
Man, corner 5 has not disappointed. We talked about it in the pre-race show. It's
And of
nasty.
course, these are the worst the tyres are going to be all race long, especially for the drivers who haven't changed them all race. That's why we might see some mistakes at the end here.
Ooms is coming up on traffic. He has the ability to take it easy. It's Lidke. Doesn't try and force the issue down through the S's.
Yeah, the real traffic is behind Rodriguez, has a couple of cars with Koltov and Tarbox, and like I say, it's just, even though none of these drivers are battling for position, as Rodriguez goes off, you just see that the way these tyres are old, these cars are beat up, it's very easy to make a mistake, and you got to hope that if someone does make a mistake ahead of you, that you react accordingly.
We were watching Jeffrey Ooms, but that's Rodriguez just ahead of him, who had an off at that previous corner in turn 7.
Rightfully so, we should be watching Ooms, because as he comes out of the chicane, he's about to get the white flag, I believe.
He will indeed. Around the final corner, Jeffrey Ooms, the Canadian, has 1 lap to go. It's a 14-second gap, 13.5-second gap over Humberto Roca. But critically for Ooms, next car up the line is Trampus Koltov, and I don't think he's going to be catching him this lap. Oh, as I say that, he's gained a lot of time, actually. I think Koltov maybe had an off in that first corner. We wondered if the traffic would play a part, and it did. We wondered if the drivers would have a harder time keeping it clean this race compared to Montreal, and they did. But one thing that is being answered right now is whether Jeffrey Ooms can manage to take home a championship this season. The deal has not been sealed points-wise, but he is going to extend the gap over his main competitor, Humberto Roca. It's already a 33-point lead, and as he comes through the final chicane, he can wait patiently behind this lap traffic if he wants. Around the line, Jeffrey Ooms is going to take the win here at Road Atlanta.
Jordan Weeks will be our next class winner over in GT3, but he still has a ways to go. However, I think he's already sealed the deal in that Dexter Castro is crossing the line right now, an extra lap behind Jeffrey Ooms. So even if Jordan Weeks ran out of fuel right now, he would still take home the victory. Of course, though, that's not the way he wants to do it. Weeks is going to continue to drive all the way around this lap as he goes down this long back straight here in Brazelton, Georgia, at Road Atlanta. When he gets to the end of this back straight, which isn't exactly straight in itself, he'll just have about 3 or 4 turns left to go between him and the finish line, and the very deserved win behind the wheel of that 88 Mercedes. He comes across the crest of a hill now. He'll be able to see the fans in the grandstand standing up and applauding as he comes through the final turn. Jordan Weeks flashes a headlight, wins GT3, Bill.
Came in and missed the first 5 races, comes in and picks up his first win. Now we'll go ahead and focus on Paul Hamilton right now as he's working his way through 10A and B. He had a victory last time out at Montreal. He's going to follow it up with another one here as Paul Hamilton is going to win the GTC class.
And that's going to wrap up all of our finishers here. Don't go away, though, because we're going to have driver interviews as well as unofficial results. And on the screen, you can see all the upcoming races here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Welcome back to Road Atlanta. We just watched round 7 in the Ricmotech.com challenge. In the end, Jeffrey Ooms put his stamp on this season. He won last round. He won this round. And, of course, behind him, Humberto Roca came home in second, about 13 seconds back. Jimmy Hume rounds out the podium, as well as Andrew Horsley coming home in fourth. Robert Tarbox Jr. rounds out our top 5. And then Paul Darling finishes our GTE finishers, coming home in 6th. Sam?
Yeah, then we go to our GT3 class. We have Jordan Weeks taking home the win there ahead of Dexter Castro. And indeed, we did get a Mercedes, a BMW and a Ferrari on the podium, with Trampus Althoff rounding out that podium. Drew Lidke and Tom Collier in Mercedes round out the top 5 ahead of Peter Hebron and Kenneth Rodriguez. A few GT3 drivers ran into trouble during the race. Liam Park, David Slee did not make it to the end, Bill.
Then we have Paul Hamilton in the GTC's winner. He said he finished with just a trace of fuel left. He had himself scared, but he was able to bring it home for the win. He comes ahead of Scott Johnson and Bart Workman. Those were the only 3 cars in that class. They all finished on the podium, obviously. Somebody who probably is not going to be sending me any candy on Valentine's would be Samuel Scott, as he's going to finish 17th overall. And then you heard Sam talk about Liam Park. Also, Freddie De La Rosa, who put on a great show up there in GTEs, finishes last in that class. Joe?
And with that, we also have David Slee and Ralph Kammerer. Kammerer was a did not start, but we've got interviews. Of course, our winner in the GTEs, Jeff Ooms, has joined us, and Sam is going to talk to him about that race.
Yes, Jeff Ooms, first off, congratulations on the victory.
Thank you very much.
Did you think you'd be able to get it after looking at the pace of Humberto Roca in practice and qualifying?
I didn't, actually. This was going to be a really, really tough race, and I was actually just hoping to stay within, about 5 or 10 seconds of him. But I knew that traffic would play a big role here, and which it did. And then when I could stay with him down the straighters, I was just trying to lift a little bit just to try to save a little bit of fuel. And I don't know how much it really did save in the end, but when Humberto pitted really early on that first stop, I was quite surprised because I was able to work into a pretty clear track and make up a lot of time, and I think that's how I got ahead of him by a few seconds on the first stop.
Yeah, it almost seemed like he was short pitting. He did the short stop, his first stop, whereas you did your long stop the first time around, but he had a spin-off course on the tracks that kind of cancelled that out. Were you concerned during the middle of a stint when he ran you back from 4 seconds back, or did you know you'd be able to build that up during the second round of stops?
No, I actually was pretty worried there because I knew that he was pretty quick, and then I was having the traffic problem that he was having in the first kind of stint there, and I was just trying to keep my cool and just roll with it because you can only do so much when you have cars you have to work around, so you just do your best. But yeah, we're both good racers and we respect each other pretty good, so we just don't have contact or anything like that. We just have good hard racing.
Yeah, definitely a great of good hard racing out there today. Now, I believe the next track we go to is Okayama. Do you think that's a place where you can continue to build on this points lead?
I sure hope so. I haven't really ran there for maybe a year or two, so it's going to take a lot of practice and work to get up to speed on that one for sure.
What edge, if any, did the Ferrari have over the Ford today?
Maybe a bit of straight line speed, but I thought Humberto was really good off that last chicane there. I don't think I caught him once going off there, and then turn 1 was really strong for him too.
Alright, well thanks for coming to talk to us, Treffy. We'll let you go and celebrate your victory.
Thank you very much. Anytime.
All right, we also have second place in the GT3s waiting to talk to us. That was Dexter Castro, just did not have the legs for Jordan Weeks, and Bill is going to be talking to him.
Dexter, let's take you through your race in little segments. You had the lead early, you got a good jump, and then Weeks ran you down.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much it was that he ran me down and how much it was that, I was saving my tires. I felt like for most of the race, or the first stint, I was exactly where I wanted to be. And then it sort of all fell apart at the first pit stop. I got boxed out of the pit lane, had to save fuel to make it around another lap. Lost a bunch of time there, and from there it was basically we were talking about it before the race. You find trouble when you're pushing, trying to make up a gap.
Boy, we saw that incident in pit lane. You tried your very best, but you were determined to get in there, and you just ran out of track to get it done.
Yeah. I couldn't tell what was going on there. He pulled to the right afterward and was going slower than I would have expected for going into pit lane. So I thought he was letting me by and didn't realize I was pitting. But I guess he was just entering pit lane. Just unfortunate timing. I mean, it probably would have cost me the same amount of time staying behind him. So it would have cost me a solid 3 or 4 seconds staying behind him. So it's, I actually didn't lose that much by having to go around another lap, even though I had to save a bunch of fuel to make it.
How did the car handle without the hood on there that you had to stay off for, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 laps before the window opened?
Yeah, I was actually surprised. It was quick. It was really not too much off pace at all. But I guess that's sort of typical with the BMW. If you touch the corners, it loses everything. But if you just get it square enough on the front, it can sometimes survive.
All right, I know you wanted the win. Second place, though, is not a bad way to settle for second. So, good luck. We'll see you down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get out of GT3. So. I think I can wrap it up with a second place finish next race. I may make some appearances in GTE if that's the case.
That'll be fun. We'll look forward to it. Good luck, man. See you down.
Yeah, see ya.
Dexter Castro, your second place finisher in the GT3s. Joe?
Humberto Rocca was second place in the class above, and the GTEs did not seem to be able to catch up to Jeffrey Ooms today, who also seemed to have a little bit of an edge on strategy. And Humberto, we noticed that you peeled off early, and even Jeffrey noted that in his interview. Was that to plan? Did you intend to come in that early and free up Jeffrey, or was that something that you just didn't really anticipate?
I had the strategy to go early on pits because, figuring out this car has been quite a thing in the last couple races, and I've noticed that when the car goes lower than 7 gallons of fuel, it just doesn't want to cooperate with you. So I have to always keep it up with as much as fuel as I can to drive it as fast as I can. So it's a weird thing that the car has.
Talk to us a little bit about being the only Ford out there. What do you think is keeping drivers from coming to this car? Is it the difficulty on low fuel that you mentioned?
Well, it's I wouldn't say it's only that. It has a little bit of disadvantage when it goes to fuel consumption. I have to load almost 18 gallons. They load 15. Their pit stops are 3 seconds faster each time they go in to get some fuel. The car gets damaged like crazy. Every time you just hit like a little bit of a curb here and there, it starts to build up a lot of damage. For example, on the first stint, I had like a 14-second repair, and I used my fast repair. And on the second stint, I have a 51-second repair. So the car was really off pace at the second stint. It was basically a half a second or more. I was losing each lap, so the car is difficult to drive. It's difficult to tweak, and I think that's one of the things that keeps the Ford GT away from everyone. That it's very challenging and very demanding, and to keep a pace on the car is just really, really hard.
Well, I guess not everybody wants to deal with a prima donna. Now, your gap has been increased up to Ooms after another win for him, and your rounds are running out. Do you think you'd be able to catch him? I know mathematically you're still in it, but how do you feel of the percentage of possibility of you being able to get back into first before the season is over?
I'm gonna do my best, as I always say, and I know it's gonna be hard. I know this one could be could have been the one I could have taken away from him because I had the pace. But you never know with traffic and all that stuff, and the car being not cooperative in some tracks. I think Okayama is the next one, and it has a lot of sharp turns. I don't know. I'm gonna do my best, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to catch Jeffrey in the championship. It's gonna be very, very hard.
Well, we wish you the best, and we hope to see you next round at Okayama. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
I believe Bill Zahn is going to be talking to our third place finisher in the GT3s, and that would be Trampus Kolthoff.
Trampus, congratulations on the third place win. You didn't have third. You had to do it at the very end there to get that pass made on Drew.
Yeah, when I came out of the pits, that's final time, one of the other cars wrecked right in pit lane, so I had to swerve to miss him, and I got a black flag for it because I didn't exit the pit.
Oh, it was. You were up and down in the standings there. I actually thought for a while you could even get. You were running second for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, when I came out of the pits, I was actually like 2 seconds behind Dexter. Before I got that black flag. Well, do you like how do you like? How was the track today? Did it from the beginning to the end? Did it change much on you at the very end? Yeah, it got a little slicker, but the Ferrari's really good. It holds its pace pretty well with the tires and everything. I think that's one of the advantages that it still has, even after they BOP'd it. Well, congratulations on a podium here. The season's almost over. You happy with the way you've been doing so far? Yeah, I just wanted to get ahead of Drew because he's just ahead of me in points. So even that 5 points will catch me up a little bit. So maybe I can catch him and get second for the season. I was just looking at that right there. Yeah, you missed the first couple races, but you've been coming on strong lately. So congratulations, especially with the win you had last time in Montreal. So good luck the rest of the way. Thank you. All right, there we have it. Your third place finisher today, Trampus Kolthoff. Go ahead, Joe.
And what's more fun than putting your friend in an awkward situation? We'll let Sam talk to the driver he cursed today, James Hume.
Well, I may have done the commentator's curse on James Hume, but let's make a note that you actually finished third, despite the fact you spun off late, James.
Yes, Sam, despite your best efforts, I guess, right? It was your fault, I take it. No, it was a heck of a race, man. I was trying my darndest to keep up with Paul for the first stint, and I just kept finding myself in these unfortunate spots where, patience wins the day going down the S's, and you try to give as much room to the slower classes as you can. And those guys did a great job of heads up driving, but I just kept losing time, and finally it manifested into a few mistakes towards the end. I must admit I didn't practice a whole lot, so I didn't get a full fuel run, and I wasn't expecting quite the fall off that I got towards the end of the race. But aside from binning it and coming through some adversity in traffic, everything worked out well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the incident point count right now. You had one of the cleanest races out there, and the way I cursed you during the race, I basically was joking around that we really weren't talking about you that much. You were having a quiet race out there, running in the top 5. Did it feel like a quiet race to you?
Quite the opposite. Last round at Montreal was very much that. Kind of just did my own thing, somewhere in between, the Rokas and the Ooms, and somewhere else in the field. So. This week was kind of nightmarish. I wasn't prepared for the amount of traffic that I'd have to go through, and again, the unfortunate timing. It just seemed like every lap or every other lap I was getting, beat down because I had to be patient, and it kind of showed towards the end because I got a little pushy. I think I heard Dexter talking before the race about finding trouble when you push, and that's exactly what happened to me. But maybe Paul was pushing as well. Got fortunate with his mistake towards the end there. But I'll take a podium any day of the week.
Yeah, you close up a little bit on Paul Darling in the points. Do you think you can continue to do that next race at Okayama?
Here's hoping, man. Last season I was a gentleman driver. This is a brand new realm for me. There's a lot more pressure in this class because the guys are going to make minimal mistakes and their pace is just off the charts. So, there's that factor. But you do the best you can. I've gotten 3 podiums this season so far. My first 3 overall podiums in CMS, and it feels great. You want to keep the train rolling, right?
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on your podium today, James, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thanks, Sam. Good to see you back, Soup. Appreciate it, guys.
Well, it is getting late over in the UK, and we thought that maybe Jordan Weeks would be asleep by now, but I guess it's not so for the Night Train, who took the win today here in GT3. Jordan, it seemed like you really just were unstoppable today. Dexter was not able to run you down. You had an incredible gap. In fact, he finished behind the leaders, and you were all by yourself on the final lap of the GT3 cars. Jordan, do you have a copy?
Is my mic working? Hello?
Oh, there we go. Now it's working.
Interesting race. That's all I can say. The track was pretty hot today, so saving the tyres was a bit difficult. But I've overheard Dexter saying he was saving tyres, and I was like, yeah, okay. So at least I know I have a pace advantage over him. But most of the race, was mainly me and keeping to lap time, not really pushing it, and saving a bit of fuel, which ultimately helped me out in the end.
Now, how do you keep your focus with it being so late at night over there and driving in these conditions for such a long race? Are you used to these hours?
No, I'm not. Really, I'll just keep myself hydrated. But luckily today, my sleeping pattern was a bit messed up, so I was able to focus. But a normal race during this time, it's a bit hard. But as long as I keep myself hydrated and just focus without anyone talking to me, I should be fine.
Well, it was an impressive win, and I expect we'll see you back at Okayama. Obviously, the championship's a little bit out of reach with you missing a few weeks at the start.
Yeah, but I didn't. To be honest, for those first races, I was planning on joining, but I just didn't have the time. But now I can. I'll be looking forward to Okayama. Not really the best track for the Mercedes, since now I've got to stick with it. But yeah, I will just have to put up with it and hope that I can beat Dexter.
All right. Well, best of luck, and thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
That was our winner, Jordan Weeks, in the GT3 class.
Let the poor guy go to sleep, Joe.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get us so we can close up as well. We went a little bit beyond what we usually do. Of course, we do need to close up and thank Ricmotech.com for sponsoring this series, as well as Miguel El Crudo for doing a lot of the organization behind the scenes. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast, listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Amjad Sam, Bill, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel or Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. As we mentioned, the next race is going to be over in Japan at Okayama. That'll be Wednesday, October 4th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Now, they have 1 week break between them, but we are not messing around this time. We're going immediately to the next round. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on your screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.